Are you a brewhead? I'm a brewhead. Are you a brewhead? I'm a brewhead. Y'all are brewheads? Yeah, we brewheads. So pour a glass of craft beer, we can do this. Yeah.
What's good, y'all? This is Cee, certified brewhead.
And I am Nathan from NathanDoesBeer.
And welcome to episode 170 of Beer and Other Stuff Podcast Adjunct series. Nathaniel, we're going to Quebec, my man.
We are, and it's gonna be a little different tonight.
Yeah, so this is something that I feel like we've wanted to do, and the opportunity just hadn't come up. So obviously, if you're watching or listening to the pod, and if you're watching now, I'm slowly backdating all the episodes on Spotify. So if you're on Spotify, all of the video episodes are up there too now. I'm working my way through. It takes a little bit of time, but I'm getting there. You would notice that obviously we talk to almost exclusively breweries, but we've been trying to expand that more. Talk to bottle shops, craft bottle shops. Who else we spoken to? We've done hop farms in the past.
Yep. It's like other folks in the industry, like because there's a lot that goes into beer, obviously. Absolutely.
And some things that go into beer that are very important are the ingredients, and that's something that we're fascinated with, because you don't really get to have these conversations with people that are deep in the other side of the game, that are providing the ingredients to the beers that we drink. So this evening we're talking to a gentleman who's at a yeast supplier out of Quebec, which is really fascinating, because I've spoken to one yeast person on a live panel like 6 years ago one time. That was basically about it. So we've never actually recorded anything. So all of these beers use the yeast from the company, which is extra fun. So we're going to get probably, I would hazard a guess, a little nerdier than usual, which is fun for us and hopefully fun for you guys as well. So shall we get it going?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay, guys, please welcome Colin from Labo in the building. So, welcome, man. Great to have you.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having us. Great to be here.
Pleasure, my man. Thank you again. This has been really cool to connect, and like I said, we're really looking forward to this. When we first connected, I was like, man, what a great idea. This is something that we should probably take more initiatives to do. So I'm very glad that we connected, and we've got a really fun lineup of beers that, I don't know, we're gonna be nerding out heavy. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah,
absolutely. We're gonna get nerdy right now with the first one.
Yeah,
Shall we tell us about this one, my man?
Yeah, so this is the Sea to Sky West Coast IPA.
Hell yeah.
From Passenger Brewing Company, which I guess you could say I'm the head of production / head brewer at as well. So it's pretty cool to start the first one with a beer that I'm pretty familiar with.
Great way.
And I can give you a pretty clear rundown of both the yeast profile, but also the beer profile as well.
Yes, and you're speaking to our one of our biggest passions. Both Nate and I are deeply enamored with West Coast IPAs, and there just isn't enough of them on the market. So we're both very happy to see this as a part of the lineup tonight.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, they kind of have been overshadowed in the last few years, I'd say, with the New Englands.
Yeah.
But I don't know, with the resilience of, or the renaissance, should I say, of lagers coming back, people still want that IPA in their life, so they kind of have a nice balance between your lager, crisp, clean, and your hoppy IPA with your West Coast. So, I mean, there's always going to be a place. There's always going to be a place in the market for them, I believe.
I would say so.
Yeah, definitely. I'm trying to get this photo here.
Yeah.
Love it.
And just looking at the color here, this has got like a gorgeous copper hue. It's like pretty clear, and it's got quite an active nose, but was getting a lot of kind of grapefruit vibe right off the bat.
Yeah, I mean, the hops I used in this brew was Mosaic and Centennial. Sometimes Mosaic can be a little bit of a tricky one, especially when you go into like double IPA alcohol percentages. It can sometimes give off that slight onion garlicky flavor, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
With the alcohol presence as well. But I found with this, it really came out nice and clean and really enjoyable as well. I hope you guys enjoy it. Just
Oh,
launch
whoops.
it.
My fault. Sorry, y'all. I knocked the button.
Oh,
There you
now
go.
you're
Bring it
looking
back.
just at my face there.
Oh my goodness. I'm just gonna fix
Okay,
this
here
up.
I am again.
Okay, I'm just gonna pause for 1 sec. All right, Joe. Sorry, we're back. All right. So this was which one? Like Mosaic and Centennial for this one.
Yeah.
Mosaic and Centennial. The yeast that was used is juteuse, which is juicy in French. LSB 1011. If any brewers out there are interested in using it, it's like
Perfect.
kind of a medium to low flocculating yeast. So you're left with a slight haze hue, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still like really good for brewing like your kind of crispy West Coast IPAs. I'm kind of not of the opinion that West Coast should be like completely crisp and clean. I like to have a little bit of haze in my beers.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I kind of went with that yeast. Really good for like higher alcohol beers as well, because I mean sometimes with like your Brune London Yen, which is the 3007, it leaves like a great haze, but at the same time, its alcohol presence or its alcohol tolerance, should I say, isn't quite up to spec to what the Juteuse would be. So that's why I went with Juteuse on this one.
Gotcha. Hell
Okay.
yeah. All right, let's try this, boys. Cheers.
Cheers.
Get
Cheers.
that in you.
Let's launch it.
Nice. Yeah, man. That's not even. It's not overly intense as far as like the piney vibes as well. So was it intentional to kind of like make it clearly a Westie, but not strip your tongue as such?
Yeah, exactly. As I said,
Gotcha.
I like that haze. I like that smoothness in my beers. It's not, you're not going out to, as you said, have your taste buds stripped. Both with alcohol tolerance and with hop, sometimes like hop burn. And as I said, when you're working with Mosaic, sometimes it can get a bit intense when you overload it. So you're getting that like oniony, garlicky. Whereas I like that paired with the Centennial, it just leaves it nice and smooth. But as you said, it's still, you still get that pininess coming through as well.
Nice.
Yeah,
this is...
and I'm getting to like probably a bit more residual sweetness, like on that side. Like it gives kind of like a caramelized like grapefruit sort of vibe. Does that sound right?
Yeah, it will be right. I mean, the malts that I used were Maris Otter Low Color 50% and Maris Otter regular. So with the Maris Otter regular, you're going to get that slight toastiness, if you will, but also what you said about the residual sweetness. It's because the Juteuse yeast doesn't finish out too high, or sorry, doesn't finish out too low. So you're left with that slight residual sugar left in it, and it leaves that nice, as you said, pininess as well. Helps to support the hops.
Love that. How long has this beer been out? Is it relatively new?
Yeah, so the brewery was it last month gone. It's 1 year old, the brewery.
Okay.
So this beer is maybe 6 months old, I think. I think we brewed it last June, May-ish. So
Gotcha. Okay, dope. Because I've been out of Quebec now about coming up on 2 years. So I'm sort of might have missed the launch of all of this. So this is fascinating to learn about a new brewery. I imagine we'll probably talk more about that shortly as we get into your story. But yeah, man, solid Westie. How's the response been for this beer on the market?
it's been pretty incredible. As I said, sometimes it can be overshadowed by your New England IPAs, and we did release a New England as well. But unfortunately, I couldn't get you guys any because it's pretty much sold out. Which would kind of show you where the market is.
Yep.
People see New England, people see Haze on the shelf, they just jump for it. Whereas sometimes their Westies can be a little bit harder to sell.
Yeah, definitely heard that. It's kind of like maybe for folks like us who have all been into beer a while, and this is like a bit of a throwback to what it was 10 plus years ago when this is exactly what you were looking for. But if the newer beer heads might not be as familiar with it, and maybe it's a bit if you came up off juicy New England IPAs, West Coast are probably a little bit of a quiet taste, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, you could definitely say that. And I mean, even you look at the beer profile, for example, of like the Alchemist, and a lot of people they say it numerous times to John Kimmich that like that's not really New England IPA. It's too bitter. It's too intense. I mean, let the brewer play is what I say. And he
Yeah.
is the godfather of New England IPA, so I don't think anyone's questioning him.
I always thought Hetty was a Vermont IPA, and then Hill Farmstead started New England IPAs. That was my understanding of it, but I feel like
Ooh.
that could. Well, that's what Sean Hill. I got to hang out with Sean Hill last summer, and he said that he started New England IPAs, and he worked for John Kimmich beforehand. So I kind of took that, and I never thought Hetty, in my opinion, was never a New England IPA. It was always a
Yeah.
Vermont IPA because if you compare it to Sip of Sunshine or Fiddlehead Second Fiddle, they're all exactly as you described. Little more maltier, bitter and piney, while still being juicy. Like they were absolutely unequivocally the forefathers of it. And then I think Hill Farmstead did, and then it kind of ran from there. That's my understanding,
Yeah.
but
No,
no,
you
I
could be
might be
honest.
off.
As you said, I'm from a foreign land, so I'm not as with it with regards to your kind of how the origins of all those beers happened 20 years ago or 15 years ago. So I'm
Still
still
learning.
learning. You can always learn in this industry.
Oh, tell me about it. Look, I'm not from here either, bro. And I just traveled around, talked to people a lot smarter than I am, and just trying to like figure. I'm trying to get to the bottom of it. We figured out who did it in Ontario first, and I only learned last summer that it was Hill Farmstead. I thought it was like Treehouse and Trillium, but it wasn't. The dude from
Okay.
Treehouse used to come to Hill Farmstead's festivals and ask Sean all the questions about how he did his beers and stuff. And it started as a
Okay.
mistake. He said he made Susan their IPA, and then that was unintentionally hazy. Kind of looks not too dissimilar to this, probably a little hazier, but not too much. And then it kind
Yeah.
of went from there. But anyway, it's all. I imagine that everyone will have different versions of it, so I'm just trying to get to the bottom of it. But anyway, we digress.
Yeah.
But this is great, man. This is a great start. Great to learn about the brewery. We're gonna get into that. So, first question
Yeah.
for you, my man. Tell us about how you personally got into craft beer and how that led to where you're at right now. Because obviously you're involved in a bunch of things.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, as probably most people say, it wasn't necessarily intentional. I was studying market. Well, I finished my degree in marketing in Ireland, and I did a internship for a multinational company in Europe. Just in my hometown, just in a 3 months, 6 months internship to get a bit of money in my pocket. And after that, I kind of said I've always wanted to be a ski bum. So I got well, as an Irish person, I realized how easy it is to get visas for these incredible countries like Canada, New Zealand, Australia. So yeah, I jumped at the opportunity to work at a ski hill in Banff, Alberta,
Nice.
and then fell in love with the Banff Brewing Company out there. Um, Probably should have been paying rent in the Banff Brewing Company rather than my actual apartment because I was staying in there so many times. But I found it absolutely incredible because back home it just felt like all the macros were dominated everything. You had your Guinnesses, your Heinekens, and there wasn't really much else to offer. So
Mm.
then when I went into the Banff Brewing Company and drank their stout, I was like, how are they making this so incredible? And something which I want to learn more on. But it turned out to be the water profile of that
Mm.
stout, which from the glaciers in the Banff National Park, was making this incredible beer. And after that, I met my now wife, and we decided we wanted to go travel New Zealand. So I picked probably my best opportunity to get into the craft beer market, which was Wellington, to move to that city. So moved in there. I think there was maybe 150 breweries for a population of 500,000 or something like that.
Wow.
So
150?
Yeah, all in within the city borders.
That's insane.
Wow.
Yeah.
I
So I
I don't know
mean,
if I've ever heard
when
anything like that
when
before.
when they say 150, I think they're allowed to kind of talk about guys that are like brewing in their garage and like just kind of distributing it to mates and stuff like that. But
Right.
for even with that kind of culture in a city, I knew it was my best opportunity to get in somewhere, even if
Mm.
it's packing cans, the usual way that people get into it. And I had been in contact with a few breweries out there, but nothing was really popping up, especially for no one with or someone with no experience. Um, and after that, I think I was in the country about a week, and the guys at Garage Projects reached
Oh,
out to me.
nice.
So it was again just a case of going out to a warehouse, packing cans, and that was going really well for probably about 3 weeks. And one of the guys there said to me, "Hey, man, your work ethic is incredible. Let's get you down into the cellar." And it wasn't just the cellar at the clean facility; it was the cellar at the Wild Workshop. So wild fermentation beers. Just my mind was absolutely blown when I moved in there. Again, it was just jack of all trades, but a master of none. So I was waxing bottle caps and just learning as I went every day. Um, and from there, visa ran out, so I had to move on from that gig. Flew back to Ireland and got a job, probably more that my parents wanted me to do than I wanted to do, which was I got a sales representative, or not sales representative, marketing representative for Diageo.
Hmm.
But unfortunately, being the time that it was COVID. So I was in that job for maybe 3 months. All the pubs were starting to close, losing uh, probably the opportunity to stay in that area. So got let go from there, unfortunately. And then I said, well, what do I know? So I went back into brewing, worked
Okay.
with Alltech for a year, and then got a shift lead position at Rye River Brewing Company where I stayed for 2 years, and now I'm in the position that I am now with the Labo after moving back to Canada this time last year.
Nice. And what made you want to come back to Canada?
Um, Mostly the weather. Irish weather is not very appealing, especially when you compare it to, for instance, today's weather, which is like just bucket and snow. I live in the Eastern Townships as well, which is pretty cool, right beside Mount Offord and Owl's Head. So I get to do a good bit of skiing on my days off. And yeah, I just really feel like the beer industry here is like probably I always say about 10 years past what it is in Ireland.
Okay.
So it's just that bit more developed, bit more of an age that you can really make a solid career out of the micro side of it rather than just being sucked into the macro side.
Right. That's a good point, though. I guess I would imagine North America, because the states, from what I understand, essentially created craft beer, so everywhere is behind them, and Canada's probably the closest. I would guess from where I've been between Canada, Australia, and America. I would say Canada's pretty close,
Yeah,
and I know from what I could tell.
yeah, no, I would agree. Just with I think it's the acceptance of like that culture and that embracing of like that community vibe. I mean, they do have a lot of that in New Zealand, I have to say as well. And as I said, when they have
Agreed.
an aged micro culture, microbrewing culture, as I said, of Wellington, like it was just my mind was blown when I got moved over there. It was insane.
The last time I was back in Australia, I was always drinking Kiwi beers whenever I saw them, and Garage Project were always killer, particularly with the haze, like so impressive. And people always raved over there about the beer festivals in New Zealand. There's one called Beervana, I think.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's insane. Yeah, and it's probably 250 breweries attending the
Damn.
Beervana, which is insane.
Mm. They go hard. New Zealand's an interesting country. It's such a small place, but producing so much stuff and so much world-class stuff, which is wicked. I love to see that.
Yeah.
So you got involved in some good stuff, man. Yeah, but I see what you mean. Also, it was the first time I've ever heard someone say they moved to Canada for the weather. That's fucking hilarious. Because it's probably my biggest gripe with it.
No, as I said, if you have the choice between rain and snow, I'm gonna take snow all the time.
I say that too because I'm from Melbourne, Australia, and the weather it's just rain. It's kind of not quite Ireland because you do get really good summers, but fuck, the rain kills me. I hate it. But then we were talking about this today. The snow sucks, but it doesn't ruin your day unless it's a blizzard. Like you can just keep going about it. You need to take the dog for a walk, put little shoes on the guy or whatever. But like if it's raining, it's your day's ruined.
Mind you, this past winter has been a weird, weird winter. It's been a rainier winter than I think we've had in the last 10, 15 years.
Yeah, no, it's true. The weather's been crazy, man.
Super
it's been absolutely crazy.
Even for you guys out there, because out here it's like in Hamilton's soft. Because I was in Montreal for a decade, man. Gee, like same thing as what y'all are getting, and -40 for like a month. Well, maybe not a month, but like horrible stuff. And then here is so soft. I think I wore my Sears winter jacket 3 times. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, last winter, for example, I was here and it was -25, and it was just so fluctuating. It was like -25 for 2 weeks, then it'd be like +5 for 2 weeks. Whereas this year, it just feels like so mellow compared to that. Whereas it might be -10 for 2 days, but then you're gonna have 3 weeks of 0 to 5 degrees. Just really, you're kind of when. We had a day of 15 degrees that came around about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I was kind of thinking to myself driving in the car, I was like, I don't think I'm ready for winter to be over. It's such a weird feeling. I remember those days even when I was sitting in the Banff Brewing Company, I'd be watching I don't know, some surfing tournaments on the TV, and you're just like, oh man, you see the green fields, and you're I cannot wait to see green again. But yeah, this year just feels so weird.
Yeah. See, and you're both just very Canadian right now, and this has become a very Canadian podcast because we've just spent about 3-4 minutes talking about the weather at least.
Hey,
holy shit!
We're embracing it.
Yeah, that's right. So we've got a lot of beers to get through tonight, and before we start digging into what's cracking at Labo, we should probably crack the next beer to make sure we keep this train rolling.
Yeah, you know what? Thank you for keeping us on point. We tend to slack off a bit there. So we're under your guidance, Colin. Whatever you want to do next, my brother.
I think we'll go with the non-alc if that's okay, guys.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Big fan of non-alcs, and love to hear that you guys doing the yeast for that one. I imagine for this too.
Yeah, no, this is a really, really interesting one.
So this is from Siboire, obviously from Sherbrooke. Now they just opened a second spot in Montreal, I saw, which is cool.
And they opened the one in Quebec City as well. Or they're about to open.
They mess around.
Now,
cool. Tell us about this one, man. I personally am a huge fan of non-alc, so I always like to try this stuff. Talk to me.
Yeah, so as you can probably see, the haze levels are absolutely off the chart.
Damn.
Yeah, I'm surprised. That's quite thick haze.
The nose is great.
Yeah, and it's our LSB 8001 Overroom. It's maltose negative yeast, and it has been isolated from maple water, so it only ferments sucrose and glucose.
Huh. What? Could you break that down a little bit more?
Yeah. So basically, any malts that you're mashing in with this beer, it won't ferment out the sugars in those malts. Okay. So it can be a little bit sugar forward, but when you're using this yeast, you're really going to keep those proteins in suspension, hence the hazy beer. And yeah, it just gives off that great kind of smooth mouthfeel of that you're looking for in a non-alcoholic hazy beer, but obviously without the alcohol. So
yeah, all right. I'm keen as for this one, gentlemen. Cheers. Get that in you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah, juicy nose. Hell yeah, that's solid, man.
Yeah,
What's
the guys
the
at
going?
the guys at Siboire are really knocking this one out of the park. And as I said, it's one of our biggest sellers right now. The non-alcoholic market has just absolutely soared, as you guys probably know,
Mm-hmm.
which personally I think is a great thing. There's nothing like going to a party for 4 or 5 hours and being able to grab your keys and say, "Oh, it's sweet. I can take the car home." And
It's
also, you'd like I found when I'm drinking this beer, that sometimes when you like have someone drinking a non-alcoholic in a party, and it's just printed on the label non-alcoholic, and it makes you feel a little bit separated from the whole buzz and the culture of the party. Whereas with this, I never felt that. I always felt like on the same level as everyone.
That's a good point as well. If you have it in a glass and it looks like this, I don't think anyone would even question
Yeah.
if it has
Because
alcohol in it or not.
sometimes I think that yeah, maybe that can turn people off non-alcoholic sometimes if they feel like they're going to be a little bit excluded from the buzz of the party.
Mm.
It's as you said, it's great to have this option now, to give those people the ability to either stay sober or to be able to take their car home after a fun night.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man. Yeah,
Whatever their reasons are.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
exactly.
whether you're abstaining or you just need to chill out. Like we've got a friend Matt from Vox and Hops, who's a podcaster in Montreal. Shouts to you, Matty, and he calls himself the beer magician because he makes beer disappear because he drinks too hard and he tricks himself at late night when he starts getting too lit by drinking non-alcoholic beers to keep the thing going without going too crazy, which I thought was like it's a great way to do it. There's so many uses. I've even just I drink non-alcoholics like every week on the nights off beer because it gives you that sort of like it's almost like having a vape for smoking sometimes because you get the feeling of cracking the can and pouring it into a glass and it looks like and tastes like New England IPA but without the alcohol.
Still drinking something fizzy, like you kind of still get like a
Get a
bit of the
flavor.
same, like physiological effect from it in a little bit, but yeah, at least of
Totally.
drinking it.
No, totally. And as you said, Craig, just to have that like sensation, that sensation of like cracking the can, getting those aromas from the hops, getting that mouthfeel roll along your tongue,
Yeah.
but not have that influence of alcohol.
Mhm.
It's incredible. And
Yeah.
especially when, as I said, with this beer is such an evidence to how far the science of non-alcoholic beverages have come.
Yeah.
Um, as like someone like I did it actually with someone one time, which was gave them one of these beers and said try that. There was absolutely no recollection to them of like, oh, this could be non-alcoholic, or this is definitely non-alcoholic. It was just drinking it like a regular beer.
I love that. That's a real testament to, like you said, to where it's at, to where the tech is at. On that note, because I just feel like it's always interesting to talk about that. So the yeast, because I know there's like multiple ways to do non-alcoholics, like the arrested fermentation, where it gets to a point and you stop it. But it sounds like this is the specific yeast that is made to stop fermenting or something. Would you get a bit nerdy with that? Break that down a bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's mostly because, as I said, we do assist with the recipe making when people purchase this yeast for the first time if they have any questions. Like, mostly you're going to have a quite heavy oat and wheat malt base.
Mm-hmm.
So you want as minimal sugars as possible in your regular pale malt. So only a small bit of that. You are going to end up with quite a high gravity at the end of brewing, which sometimes, as I said, leaves that high sugar content. But at the same time, you're still always going to hit below your 0.5%. We
Mm.
do recommend that people pasteurize their beer also, but we do have quite a high percentage of brewers who are brewing with this yeast not pasteurizing, and they've never had any secondary fermentation problems.
Amazing. So
Yeah.
how does it, do you know how it actually works? Like how the specifics of this yeast sort of create the non. I mean, obviously it's less than 0.05, so there's like obviously a touch of alcohol, but barely perceptible type thing. 0.05
Yeah,
or
it's
0.5?
really it's just its low attenuation capabilities.
That's what it is. Okay.
That's really like, as I said, it does ferment that small bit, but not enough to overheat your legal 0.5.
Gotcha. Okay. It's yeah, man, this is impressive. I love it. This is the type of thing. So is this the you said this is the type of thing that they should be like sending everywhere. Is this particular beer like something that Siboire are pushing pretty hard that you're aware of? Like is it, could you go to most establishments around Quebec and pick this up?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I've seen it in all the IGAs around Quebec, and also speaking to the guys at Ciboire,
Mm-hmm.
they've told me that they have like the managers at IGAs have told them that they have people coming in and buying like 24 cases of these at a time.
Nice.
It's
Nice.
it's it's just blowing up. I couldn't believe it myself when I heard it for the first time.
It's you know what? Because I guess they could have it out here. I was about to say it's like each province because there's a bunch here in Ontario that we're able to get regularly that are fire that's sort of along this lines that are like Bellwoods does a great one. Like their one is everywhere, so it's almost like all restaurants have just gone. If you want a hazy IPA, you go to that one. I feel like to me this tastes like it could be the Bellwoods Stay Classy, which is their one version
Yeah.
in Quebec, where you could go to a restaurant and get this. And like I've been to Bellwoods and had their non-alcoholics because it was a night that I wasn't drinking, but I had to meet somebody there, and like kind of what you were speaking to earlier. I didn't feel like I wasn't part of the party because my beer looked like this, and I felt completely fine. Um, I can see this being the type of one that you go anywhere, and like besides depanneurs and supermarkets, because I think that's great. But I feel like this is like a restaurant product that could really
Yeah,
pick up because it's so well done.
totally, totally.
Yeah.
And like, there's numerous restaurants. I know Ciboire being based in Sherbrooke, it's quite heavily available in the restaurants here.
Mm.
But there's like even like simple having items like that on a menu can encourage for me, for example, like my wife wanted to go to a restaurant in Sherbrooke and I was like eyeing up the non-alcoholic options because I was designated driver. And to see that this is so like widely available and it was available in that restaurant, I was like made me even more eager to want to go.
Yeah, that's great though. I like that a lot, and I feel like that was the DD reason, and kind of like as Nate mentioned earlier, there's a variety of reasons that would make that people would want this. So it is really cool to have that like, maybe you don't want a sparkling water or a kombucha or something. Like if you're driving or for whatever reason, like you want something like this. It's cool, and it's all the best part about it is the quality of this particular beer in this style is really what I'm referring to, because I think this is extra difficult to pull off
Yeah.
in NA. Hard enough to do a hazy IPA that's A1, with 6, 7, 8% alcohol, let alone less than 0.5. So I mean, like, big ups to Siboire for this because it's some great shit.
Yeah. And it's real like, and I find that the IPAs in particular are really difficult because it kind of it kind of really accentuates the kind of thing about session IPAs that I usually don't like, which is it really coming off with a really hard citric bitterness when as the ABV drops lower and lower. But this one manages to pull that off quite well, and actually like really drinking quite like a New England IPA, just without alcohol and without an excessive citric bitterness, which I think is pretty impressive.
Yeah, and something I really like about what Ciboire are doing with it as well is from the marketing perspective of it, that they're using it to be promoted at like sporting events and giving, like even the special edition can that we have is produced for the Quebec Games,
Okay.
which taken part in Sherbrooke this year. So
Oh,
like
okay. So that's this business right here.
Yeah, all
exactly.
the like fencing and like skiing and hockey
Yeah,
and shit.
I
Dope.
know. Tried to find it for you guys, but I couldn't see it anywhere on the shelves yet. Was they made a special edition of this beer using only Eclipse hops, for the eclipse that's coming up next Monday.
Oh,
That's awesome. That's
yeah.
great. That's very
It's
cool.
really
Does
cool.
it are you guys getting it out there? Is it happening like totality in both Sherbrooke and Ottawa?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's like the totality is right online with Sherbrooke. Yeah.
Oh, that's dope.
Yeah, we're not going to have it in totality in Ottawa, unfortunately. Like I think we're supposed to have like one of the least ideal visibilities of it, like of the major cities in Ontario. I know that Prince Edward County is supposed to have it in spades, but so they're going to have it a bit better than we will here, unfortunately.
Gotcha. That's a shame. Yeah, Hamilton's only getting a partial one, but we're gonna go down to Niagara. Well, apparently they're expecting like 1 million people. Niagara Falls. We're gonna go
Yeah.
the back roads, even just to Beamsville, like the wine country there, to try and get it. I got the glasses ready to go. I'm stoked. It's gonna be hectic.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Yeah. No,
That's cool. I like
was
that.
just saying, I love that, like kind of when breweries use those kind of marketing tools for those big
Yeah.
events coming up. It's huge.
Yeah, man, and particularly like I've seen a bunch of beers, mostly in Buffalo because we're close to Buffalo here. Like a lot of breweries out there doing it, and in Rochester. But I'd seen maybe one brewery here, maybe two, but using Eclipse hops for that, fucking genius. I love that.
Yeah, that is genius.
So smart. That's wicked, man. This is, and also
Yeah.
even just to touch on the name of this, like Discipline, calling it that is, is a phenomenal name for the beer too. I really think this is all around. This is like an A1 product. This is great, man. It's even cooler that you guys are, rocking.
Yeah, and as I said, being isolated from maple sap, just making it that extra bit more Canadian as well.
Yeah,
Couldn't get more
absolutely.
Canadian, really. I was gonna ask. So this was obviously a yeast that Labo are providing. So this is being, I guess, as far as like the rest of the market. So what's it looking like? So you're selling this yeast to a lot of breweries. Like, what's the interest been in this, and how has the product turned out from the ones that you've tried?
Yeah, I mean it's been absolutely incredible. As I said, the reaction from breweries wanting to create that most realistic alcoholic beer in non-alcoholic form has just been incredible. Like incredibly well received in Quebec. We haven't had much interest outside of Quebec yet,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, we've only really started to push our outside Quebec sales in the last probably year and a half.
Okay.
So for non-alcoholic products, it hasn't been picked up on quite yet by a lot of breweries, but yeah, hopefully when people see our taste products like this that can be produced with that strain, it speaks wonders for itself.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That was actually another question. So like the actual like the reach of Le Labo, like where do you mostly sell? So obviously you mostly sell in Quebec, but do you sell period outside of Quebec, or is that just something that you're starting to roll out as a whole, regardless of just not just this NA yeast, but all the yeasts?
Yeah, so for all the yeast now, we sell across Canada. As I said, we've only really started to push that in the last year and a half because we moved into our new facility, allowing us more production space, and a wider reach, obviously, and greater volumes as well. So yeah, we sold as far as Vancouver
Nice.
and as far as Cape Breton. So um, coast to coast, really.
That's very true, actually. Are there any breweries that you want to shout out without, I don't know if that's picking favorites or anything, but just the breweries that you're aware of that that use the yeast that if people are wondering, hey, I want to try it, or even if there's breweries listening that want to try it, aside from reaching out to you guys directly, but like if they want to try existing beers, aside from the ones that obviously we're going to be talking about a whole bunch tonight from Ontario and Quebec, are there any off the top of your head that you're able to name?
Yeah, I mean, the big guys that we work with would probably be the likes of Boreal. I know they're big fans of ours, and I'm pretty sure you can get them countrywide. But yeah, for the most part, it's just the guys that we're going to be speaking about tonight that are regular purchases of our yeast, and we were able to get you the freshest beers that they're producing right now.
Love that. That's money. Yeah, man, this is great. So, is there any before we get into the next one, because we're trying to get through a bunch, we're going to be moving relatively fast. But is there anything else like what, as far as yeast producers? Because I guess I can't say I know a ton about it. Like, what really makes, I guess, what makes Le Labo different? But also, like, just in general, what differentiates the yeast producers? Like, is it their approach to it, or like how does all of that sort of work, or what makes everybody different?
Yeah, well, I suppose for us, like our big thing would be our collection. Unfortunately, I didn't get any of our Belgian stuff for you guys, but our Belgian collection is like second to none with
Okay.
any of the yeast suppliers. We're also, I don't think I mentioned it at the start, but we're only liquid yeast suppliers. So you
Okay.
have your two differentials of your dry yeast and your liquid yeast. Um, Liquid yeast is easier to crop, easier to pitch, more variety of strains, um, and that would really be the big selling point for liquid yeast.
Gotcha.
And also for us, we've done some financial or pricing differentials with the other suppliers in North America, and we're 25% cheaper than all other liquid yeast suppliers across the country.
Nice.
So
Okay.
in a tight budget time for microbreweries right now, it's a huge financial saving for them if you can save 25% on one of your ingredients that you're using.
Hell yeah. We always say, like, in this economy, we say that shit all the time. And we've done multiple episodes about, like, the cost of craft beer and everything. So it's a great point.
Yeah. And it's not even like just saving that 25% as well.
Uh-huh.
It's being able to like support your most local supplier or within the country as well.
Mm.
Yeah.
So
I would,
like as
yeah,
as it's always been kind of preached in craft beer, like support local,
of course.
support your nearest suppliers, because at the end of the day, that's how you create these cultures and these communities around people where everyone just bounces off each other. You know what I mean?
Couldn't agree more. I was gonna say, do I thought, and this might be just naive, I thought that Canadian breweries typically would be much more inclined to use yeast suppliers, whether it's in their province or nearby, or neighboring provinces or whatever, as opposed to say somewhere in the States or wherever. Is there still a lot of breweries that you're aware of that use, like, I'm saying, American companies or whatever?
Yeah, huge
Really?
amount. And
Huh.
I think it's really it's not out of ignorance, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
It's just out of a lack of knowledge in their own supply chain within the country.
Right.
Mm.
So I mean, for Canada right now, for liquid yeast suppliers, there's only two Canadian liquid yeast suppliers out there.
Wow.
Uh,
So it
yeah,
is that. I guess that's not the case in the States.
no, I think there's
No.
about four or five. But at
Okay.
the same time, I think it's like a lot of those companies, those breweries that use those suppliers probably got started before we actually came into the supply chain.
Mm.
Mm,
And it's just a case of like, you know what you have and you kind of want to stick with that to grow your own recipes. Whereas it's
Yeah.
kind of not necessarily the case because we have all the same strains as those companies are very similar that you could just easily substitute out. And I think
right.
it's just something that brewers are not fully educated on enough to make that bold change to another supplier.
Right. Got it.
And and I don't know if you'll know the answer to this. Do you know if it's like would most craft breweries be using liquid yeast, or or would they be using a different type?
It's something that we've been trying to figure out because I mean, as I said, there's pluses and negatives to both. With your liquid, as I said, much easier to crop, much easier to pitch, much more variety of strains. And for me personally, as a brewer, I find the flavor complexity increases when you use liquid yeast compared to dry. Whereas with your dry, it's much more convenient to use because you can have it sitting on a shelf in a cold storage for months on end. And when you need that strain, or when you need a fresh pitch, you just run to the fridge, grab it, pitch it. It's all straightforward, if you know what I mean. But something that I've always liked to do as a brewer is take liquid as your first choice, and then let's say your strain is not in availability for our company or the other Canadian supplier, then you go to your dry yeast and use that as a last resort. Or even if you find that your pitch rate is not up to standard from your most recent crop, then you go to your dry option and then start a new propagation for your liquid yeast.
What's pitch rate?
Pitch rate would be amount of cells per mil per liter that you have in your yeast. So it's the amount of live cells that you have to ferment your beer.
Gotcha. So then, okay, thank you for that. So then, and this is where I really don't understand a lot about yeast. So like, you said the propagating, and I've heard people say they have their house yeast that they use. So that usually a house yeast, if this is my very primitive understanding, is that they'll buy the yeast from Labo, say, brew that beer. They'll be able to take some of the shit at the bottom of the fermenter and then be able to propagate whatever the fuck that is, to then keep that bad boy alive and then use it again for the next beer, and then over time it starts to take on a life of its own. Is that
pretty much?
Okay.
Like there is kind of two options that breweries use. Is like, for example, when I worked at Rye River in Ireland, we had an old candy mixer. So what we do is we'd buy in like one of those small vials pitches, which is like this tiny little packet. You'd pitch it to a flask of like, let's say, what would it be? 2 liters.
Okay.
Then you'd grow that to your 50-liter keg. Then you grow that to the candy mixer, which would be maybe 300 liters. And then you'd pitch that into a 20 hectoliter tank. So it's basically like if you make a sourdough and you grow that sourdough and then you take a part of that off and make another sourdough, you're just continuously using it until it becomes dead, and then you restart.
Gotcha. So how do people make house cultures? Like, is that like, or is that just wild that I'm thinking of?
Perhaps? It's not wild. It's basically breweries going through that propagation for so many
like
generations.
Oh, generations. Gotcha.
Yeah. So then after X amount of generations, it would grow into the flavor profile of that beer, change the flavor profile of that yeast, and that's how you develop a house culture. And a lot of breweries now, especially the big guys, they would have yeast companies bank those dominant strains to reinforce that flavor profile.
Gotcha. Okay, so yeast is sounding a lot like sperm, is what I'm hearing.
If you want to look at it that way, I'm gonna let you go on that. I'm not part of that.
Hey, I feel like I'm onto something here, boys. I feel like I'm onto something. Speaking of being onto something, shall we get on to the next one?
Yeah, let's do it.
What are we thinking, Carl? Talk to us, brother.
What am I feeling?
What are you feeling?
Maybe something light, like the Czech Pils from Passenger.
Let's run it.
All right.
Okay. Nice.
So you're gonna have to tell us a story about this one because this is Czech Pils with a bit of a twist here. Am I right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's inspired off Malinovka. I don't even know how to pronounce it, to be honest, guys.
Malinovka, it looks like.
Yeah, but it's a raspberry lemonade that is really popular in the Czech Republic. It's Passenger Brewing Company's owner, Megan. Shout out to Megan. She was inspired by this beer. So it's a Czech Pils with raspberry and lemon edition.
Oh, I can smell that lemon. Okay. And that is Malinovka, the name of the drink that's specifically popular in Czech?
It's something along those lines. I don't think it's exactly Malovin. How do you pronounce that?
Malinovka, I think.
Malinovka.
It's very pretty. Nice little light pink head there. That's fascinating. Okay. But so is the base a Pilsner? Like a base is like a Czech style Pils, and then
Base is a Czech style Pils with your Saz hops. What else did I put in there?
looks like it's
Hercules and tradition.
Gotcha. Okay.
So base Czech Pils, and then we added raspberries, and we added that lemon zest as well.
Gotcha. Interesting. Is this a summer tap beer?
Kind of brewed it to be released for like those start of patio days.
Gotcha.
When spring finally does arrive.
Yeah. Well, I know,
And
it's kind of is out here, but maybe not there.
Yeah, and speaking of which, this is a pretty fresh release, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, this is canned last week, I think, or the week after.
Wow, it's not even in Untapped yet.
No.
Well, first and foremost, I need to try this bad boy, gentlemen. Get that in you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah, definitely huge raspberry lemon head. I mean nose. That is interesting. Oh wow, it's a trip because we just came off a non-alcoholic that was quite juicy. The bitterness is hidden pretty hard. Is that my palate? Or
No,
is that...
that's not just you. I'm getting that too.
Okay.
Yeah. So the kind of design, well, hopefully maybe it hasn't mellowed out properly in the can yet, but the design plan was to have that initial bitterness of your kind of Czech Pils, and then to let it roll out to the back of the tongue and get that raspberry.
Mm-hmm.
You'll get that lemon zest as well at the front of the tongue, which is probably encouraging or exaggerating that bitterness.
That's interesting. Okay, you know what? Second sip, way more mellow.
Yeah.
I always find that that's interesting because we typically would start with a crispy, and I always find that the crispies come across as intensely bitter the first sip, maybe two, then they chill out as your palate kind of adjusts. And it's interesting because this is beer number 3, but we've had 2 very different styles of beer before this, and it's still hitting. That means the bitterness is in crispies is just the thing. Then that's news to me. I like that. Yeah, so it's like it's just so interesting. Like it's hard to kind of place it.
Yeah, that's especially when you pour it out and see that color. As you said, it's just kind of a mindfuck that it just like jumps out at you and you're like, what the hell is going on here? But as I said, like with regards to breweries using those big events as marketing tools, having like a wild funky color like that in a usually considered traditional beer style can really jump out to consumers as well.
It catches the eye for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the head is like nice pink as well, which is kind of like complements the whole thing.
Yeah.
So do you want to talk us through the yeast in this bad boy?
Yeah.
Yes. So the yeast I used in this is a Franconian strain that was lost for quite a few years and was rediscovered. It's called LSB 5009 Staffelberg. And it's really, usually with your lager yeasts, you're going to have like crisp, clean, not much exaggeration on any of the ingredients added to the beer. Whereas with this one, it's really beneficial to biotransformation. So any kind of hop additions that you're putting into the beer are going to be exaggerated by the yeast even more.
Okay.
And that's what I kind of like about using it in this beer as well with the adjuncts. It can sometimes funk around with the adjunct additions as well. So it's pretty unique.
Yeah, as you say that, I think one of the things that I'm getting off of this, that like, or at least what I might be interpreting as that, like as the bitterness, is the kind of pepperiness that that Saz can sometimes gives off. I feel like that's like perhaps a bit accentuated in this. Like it's
Yeah.
giving a bit of a harder punch. Maybe, I don't know if you guys are finding.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, no, I definitely get that. Definitely get that.
It's like you can taste
But
the actual like pills underneath it pretty
Yeah,
strongly.
yeah.
Like you said, this is like you said a week or two ago. So this is hella fresh, and you're saying that it'll probably one mellow out, and two maybe the flavors mesh a little more as well.
yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, as it was designed to be drank on those patio days, which we haven't hit yet. Usually with beers like that, you do need like that kind of 3 week conditioning time in the can, just
Gotcha.
for those flavors to really kind of calm down. Certain flavors to calm down, but others to become accentuated. And also, when you're sitting on a patio in the sun, those flavor, like just your whole atmosphere and the temperature can change your palate so much.
Good point. And drinking a red beer in the sun is always wicked.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Total
big
different
time,
vibes.
big time. But
So
as
yeah,
I
go.
said, I love that yeast strain.
Yeah,
It's probably one that I'm going to continue to use a lot, just in your standard lagers as well.
I was
Just
about to ask.
the
Yeah,
profile, the profile that it gives off with the biotransformation in the hops, but also like minimal sulfur, crisp, clean, zero diacetyl. It's just it's just really incredible, and that's another strain that we've recognized that breweries are just absolutely jumping for right now. Um,
right.
just trying to get that little extra element out of your beer.
Is this a Czech style yeast specific? I know it's called Franconian, so I guess technically not. But like, is it used? Can it be used for all style crispies, or is it specific
Oh
to something?
no, no, all Krispies,
Okay.
all Krispies. It's really versatile, absolutely.
What do people mostly get it for? Like any
Um,
styles that stand
you're
out? Like, is it more pilsners than Hellas or something, or that you've seen? I know this is very like qualitative question, but just curious if there's like a people tend to like it more for X style.
Not really, to be honest. Like, there's a lot of breweries that have used like your standard lager strains, like Lager Cold West or Lager Especial, which don't necessarily give off like massive yeast esters or yeast flavors or complex profiles.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a lot of breweries switching this to their house strain, which
Hmm.
is pretty sweet to see. I think it's just that. Also, with this, I find from my own personal homebrewing that you can tend to reduce your hop additions while still maintaining the same flavor profile, if you know what I mean.
Gotcha. Because the yeast kind of like
Encourages that
delivers.
biotransformation.
Gotcha. That's dope, man.
Yeah.
Fascinating, super interesting beer. I guess it has this one hit the market yet, or is it on the way?
Pretty sure it hit the market yesterday.
Okay, so it's like
So
fresh as it gets.
yeah, again, I don't know availability wise in shops. Could be another week or so, but I know it's definitely available on the passenger website.
Gotcha. That's dope. So then let's touch on Passenger for a bit because this is something. So you are the only or the head brewer there?
I am probably better off calling me production manager,
Okay,
because of the Quebec laws,
you can't.
not
Yeah.
legally able to like brew in another facility because we're actually contract brewing at the minute with the
Yes.
guys at L'Espace Public.
You know Simo,
Um,
Uncle Simo.
yeah, Simon's he's this incredible brewer.
He's the fucking best.
Hats off to him. He's just absolute legend, and he knows his stuff. He's an incredible brewer. So, I owe a lot of my recent success to Simon's brewing abilities for sure.
That's dope.
Simon's the best.
I fucking love that guy. I was very happy to hear that I didn't hear it. I saw it on the can, and I was like, yes, that's a great spot. One, it made me happy because I know that they built that brewery for that reason too, because they started contracting obviously, and then they had their own facility, so they got a cool story. But also that I know, they wanted to do that. They wanted to be able to offer that, and they actually really care. Like Simon is bigger. He's the biggest. He loves it, as you would know, like the lower ABV stuff, and a lot of their flagships have all the sours and all that type of stuff. So the fruit addition. So he'd be able to guide you through that.
Yeah,
the best way.
no, exactly, and he's been incredibly, as you said, assisting with all those like adjunct editions. Just like obviously, when you're starting to brew on a different kit, so many little finicky things that can like change compared to what you're used to. Just making minor tweaks to recipes that I create for Passenger. It's just been smooth sailing. That's all I can say about Simon.
I love it. Well,
And
we could also
the whole team at Las Basas as well. They've just been insane.
champions. I think we should definitely give his mullet a shout out. He's
Yeah, that's true.
last I
That's
saw.
very.
How's it going? Because I saw him in August last year as the last time, and I don't know. Did you meet Carl? Did you know
I
Carl?
didn't meet Carl.
No, Carl left and went to. Fuck, I forgot where he went. But Carl had been there since I knew Simon. Carl was working. I think he was a brewer. He was there at the pub and moved to the other place. But his mullet is exceptional. It's just these beautiful curls. It's money. And Simon was mad jealous of Carl's mullet, but Simo's mullet was looking pretty sweet in August. I imagined 8 months later, it's got to be popping.
No, it's still flowing in the wind for sure.
I have to get out this. I love it. Love to see that. So that's really cool, man. So Passenger was started, you said, a year ago.
Yeah, exactly. So just before I moved to Canada, I was kind of scoping around for brewing jobs. I got offered the position by Megan just for recipe creation, and it's pretty sweet. As I said, living in Sherbrooke, it's not always easy to get in and brew, and that was the reason for not taking those other positions that I was offered.
Right.
But it's worked out pretty sweet that being located here, making the recipes, popping into Montreal when want to brew, but also working for Labo as well. Just being that little bit closer to Ontario to check out the Ontarian brewers that are using our yeast, it's pretty convenient.
Yeah, you got a sweet stack of gigs there, bro. It's smart. You got to be the best of both worlds, and it can kind of bring the knowledge cross, which is going to be beneficial to both companies.
Totally. Like that's a big reason why I love working with Passenger, but also doing my own home brewing. Because when you're selling a yeast to a consumer, at the end of the day, you have to know what its capabilities are and how far you can push it, alcohol wise, profiles you're going to attain from it. So yeah, it's pretty sweet, and then to be able to use it on a production scale, for Passenger, it's perfect.
So that's actually even cooler because you got your clients that you're selling it to, but you've also got your home brewing on the smaller scale to see how it goes and to test it, and then you got the bigger scale, so you're kind of seeing it across the spectrum. So you're yeah, that's awesome. I imagine both sides, Passenger would probably really appreciate that about you as that, the very unique set of skills or set of employers like that, and then vice versa on the Labo side, being that you are a home brewer plus a production manager for a brewery, designing recipes with their yeast. That must be super beneficial.
Exactly. I mean, the cool thing about being able to go to conferences like the OCBC, CBAC, you get to know quickly what are the developing trends, what are the developing products on the market that can be used at Passenger, based off yeast profiles or the latest hop and all that kind of stuff, which I get to go through with the Labo, which is really cool.
That's cool, man. With the home brewing, is that so when you're brewing at home, do you sort of craft your recipes then around the different yeast to be hey, I just want to try this yeast out, so you just brew something to work with the yeast to maybe learn about it, or different approach?
Oh no, definitely. I mean, it's always fun to play around with hops. Um, just the different varieties of hops out there is just absolutely incredible.
Mm.
But to be able to, like, for example, with the Staffelberg, to be able to see how far you can push like dry hops in a beer to get that biotransformation going, just to see how different like alcohol percentages will affect how enhanced the yeast profile comes out. All
Hmm.
those kind of things is really fun to play with.
I never thought about that. So I guess alcohol, the higher the alcohol, often the more like aromatic and flavorful the yeast becomes.
Yeah, pretty well. Not the higher the alcohol, but
Okay.
it's dependent on the strain as well. I mean, like
Right.
as I said, there's so many different factors that can play around with that. Your hop additions, your malt bill, your alcohol percentage. There's just so many different factors that you can play with and see how far you can push yeasts, and even like to do it on a production scale for passenger, and to be able to like line up certain brews that you take, like probably being like a contract brewery, we don't get the opportunity to push yeast that far in generations. But to even see comparatively how it is on the third generation to how it was for a brew in the first generation, and how far you can push it that way, it's really cool to be able to play with those things.
Nice, man. That's really cool. So then with Passenger, what's the vibes? What you know how like you could describe a brewery as far as like, Les Spas typically make, crushable, approachable, lower ABV beers with an emphasis on sours and blah blah blah. Like how would you describe um Passenger and sort of the beers they're making and maybe what they sort of were started out to be?
Yeah, so well, like really this time last year we started off with our first brew, which was our wheat beer.
Okay.
And it was the whole idea behind the company was collaborative craft. So we wanted to get involved with as many little local businesses, to do collaborations with other breweries,
Hmm.
to make a kind of a journey, which you can kind of see on the cans. You're making a journey across the world. So we started off with our wheat beer, and that was kind of central Canada, um, going through the prairies. Then we moved to New England, which was kind of like your Atlantic coast, New England IPA. Then we jumped back across to the Sea to Sky, which was obviously Vancouver to Whistler.
Yeah, yeah.
So your West Coast IPA. Then with the Porter, which we'll have later on, that was for kind of heading into winter warmer, up in the mountains. And now we continue the journey to um, Czechia, which with the Czech Pilsner. Next up
Nice.
is an Italian blonde with a blend of coffee beans
Great
from
choice.
a local supplier in Montreal. And after that, we have a New Zealand IPA coming up, which kind of pays
Nice.
homage to where my brewing career started.
That's dope, man. So
Nice.
did you then I guess come up with the direction for all the beers, or did was it Megan, right? What's her name?
Megan, yeah, yeah.
Megan. Did she say, "Hey, I want to start a brewery that makes X styles"? Like, or did you? Was that collaborative? Or, like, how did that come about?
Yeah, I really think it was just collaborative. We were both on the same picture, with regards to how we saw the brewery going, and how like to make connections within the brewing industry.
Hmm.
As I said, to get as many collaborations, whether it's with a local supplier or with another brewery, just making that map around the world and kind of connecting the dots, which is something that we've always really just kind of bounced off each other. She comes up with an idea, I give my feedback, she gives her feedback onto that, and it's really progressive communication that we guys have.
That's cool, man. It's
Yeah.
it's cool that you're able to sort of riff it and throw these things back and forth and see where it all goes. And like, is there an ultimate goal to have a brick and mortar brewery?
I think what the goal really is to create a kind of a restaurant pub style,
Okay.
with
Hmm.
a small scale production. That would be the ideal goal. As I said, just keep throwing out these like wacky styles. Something that I took a lot of inspiration from the guys at Garage Project earlier on in my career. They started off with a 50-liter brewing kit, and just being able to throw out, like, if you brew on a scale that size, you're going to be like more adventurous, more risk taking. Whereas if you're brewing on a larger scale and you're a startup brewery, you're going to be a bit more conservative and a bit more standoff in how far you're going to push things. So that's the way I see the pathway for Passenger moving forward. Just to keep our good ties with the guys at L'Espace for large scale brewing, but then to be able to throw like 2 or 3 kegs of a specific beer out on a tap, to get people's feedback, and keep people's interest up in craft brewing and those different styles that everyone can produce, and see how far we can push it. And after that, then the sky's the limit, really.
Nice. Love that, bro. Looking at the time, shall we slap on the next one?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
What do you reckon?
I'll let you guys take a stab at this one.
Nate, I'll let you try.
All right.
Your turn. I'll do next. What do we got?
Let's see what we've got here.
So we had a Westie, an NA haze, some fruited pills. Oof.
Yeah. So after fruited pills, why don't we go pale ale now? Let's do the Overflow pale ale.
Guys, Overflow, yeah.
Sure. She is. I think I've tried these guys before.
I've been out there once to try it out. I remember really liking their porter when I went there.
Okay, and they have a physical space.
They've got a big space. They're an Ottawa brewery for those who don't know, and they've got a pretty big space, and like they've got a pretty popular event space. Like they hold a lot of concerts and shows and stuff there.
Huh. Interesting. I don't know what that had...
No, the guys at Overflow have probably been customers of Labo since the start back in 2017 when we started our large scale production.
No way.
Probably one of our long-standing customers right there.
Okay, that's great. Now, so this is a dry hop pale ale. It's looking to be probably more of the American / Westy style. Is that accurate?
Yes, but I'm unfortunately after pouring the wrong beer, guys. So I'm gonna have to go get a new glass.
No problem. You're good. Happens to the best of us. Have you had this one, Nate?
No, I've not had this one before. At least I don't think I have. It's been a little while since I've had stuff from them, so it's possible I've had it and I just don't remember. But if I have, it's been a minute.
Where's the brewery? I feel like I've definitely heard of these guys and I follow them. I just don't.
So the brewery is in kind of like the South Keys area. So it's a bit kind of south of Centertown. If you were to head like not quite towards the airport, but but in that direction a little bit.
Gotcha. I sort of know. I know Centertown at least. Okay, 4.8, and this one's rocking Flex, Citra, Idaho 7, and Vic Secret hops. And yes, so it looking like American style pale ale, which love to see more of that. Obviously, we've been talking about that tonight. We're loving those styles right there. Excuse me. Tell us more about this beer, bro.
That's really interesting. To be honest, man, it's the first time tasting it.
Okay. Let's figure it out together, shall we?
Yeah, I'm on the same page as you guys. For the yeast that was used in this, it was LSB 1001, which is our Colt West yeast. It's kind of your standard ale yeast that gets used in most ale production. Mm-hmm. Very clean, very crisp, high flocculation, which means like all those proteins are dropping out of suspension, leaving which you can probably see yourself, fingers through the glass, which is pretty cool.
Very
Yep,
cool.
I would say so.
What did you say the yeast was again, bro? Cheers, by the way.
LSB 1001. Cheers. Which
And
is
this
our,
is
the Jeteuse.
so this is not the same one that as was in the Sea to Sky, or is it?
Oh, it's not.
No,
it's
it's
not.
a,
Okay.
it's a much higher flocculent yeast, much clearer, kind of a more rounded profile as well, and like more standard profile, so it doesn't like enhance any particular ingredient in the beer.
I see.
It's just really there. It's really there for its fermentation purposes.
Right, and kind of let the other ingredients do their own thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's definitely like a super bitter. Well, not super bitter, but it's punchy, like American pale ale style. It's got a little touch of that kind of juiciness, but still that like kind of light pine, more like the kind of like dank citrusy kind of American IPA vibes.
I'm getting the dank citrusy, but then when like the carbonation dies away, I'm getting like a bit of mango as well.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep, kind of like a cooked mango and citrus kind of thing going on.
Yeah, no, I get it. It's good beer though.
Yeah, it's solid. Once again, love seeing these styles out on the market. I feel like they're still. I mean, maybe they're more common than I'm aware of, but I just feel like I don't see things like this super often. This is solid.
Well, especially using Vic Secret. I love like those Australian, New Zealand hops. Are just absolutely incredible in pale ales, IPAs, which I absolutely love.
Yeah, man, this is solid. So this particular yeast as well. So this one is primarily a Westy-ish kind of yeast. Like, what's the difference, say, between this one and the juicy yeast that was in the West Coast IPA from Passenger?
So it would really be the flocculation, as I said.
That's the main thing.
Just that high flocculation, dropping out the proteins, giving you that crisp, clean. You're dead right in saying it's very similar, or very highly used in West Coast IPAs. Hence the name Côte West in French, for the LSB 1001.
Oh, let's go Côte West. Okay, I missed that part.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, sick. Okay, that's dope, man. This is super interesting to sort of to see. Like they are quite different between the Westie and this one. There's definitely a pretty decent amount of difference as far as the overall outcome. I know they're different beers, different ABVs, but the approach and also like Martin, I think this is always interesting. Like there is a difference between a West Coast IPA and an American IPA or pale ale, whatever.
Yeah, true.
Typically, I would find I feel like this is a little punchier for an American. Do they even call it that? I'm just saying shit.
No, they just say dry hopped pale ale.
Yeah, I guess they're not differentiated.
But I think if you were to categorize this, I think you could safely say this is an American pale ale.
Right, because it's a little more juicier than a West Coast would potentially be, which is probably a little more malt forward on a Westie. This is still quite piney. Like it even says on the can they got, let's say, evergreen bitter finish, which is I like that word evergreen. I would just normally say piney, but it's a funner way to say it.
But it's also I don't know if you noticed with the Jeteuse, but like what I would usually do for like a West Coast IPA would be, as I said with the Mosaic and the Centennial, I didn't want to overdo it. And that Jeteuse yeast, the same with the Staffelberg, can really enhance biotransformation. So again, like speaking to breweries when I travel around, when they're trying to cut costs and save money here and there, to be able to use those yeasts and still get that hop flavor without necessarily using their older in recipes, the amount of hops that they would use in those recipes. It's a great way to cut costs that way.
I like that. That's dope. So that's a little bit like kind of like news to me that as far as I mean, I guess I knew that yeast and hops and everything kind of interacts, and that's kind of a part of it. But it's probably like what's it called? Where if you use too much of something, then it becomes redundant. What's that sort of the name of that theory? Do you know what I'm talking about?
The diminishing returns.
Diminishing returns. I knew it was the D. Thank you. So like there is a diminishing returns period on dry hopping. Some people have fucking just put thousands of dollars in a beer, and some people think that's ridiculous. But like I guess this is some science-based stuff where a certain amount of hops, if you use over it, you're probably wasting your money because the yeast itself can enhance that to the point of tasting like you put more in. Is that
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, but also like as I was saying about the mosaic, if you overdo it, you can start to get off flavors, which isn't good as well. So
Gotcha.
as you said, there's that diminishing returns, but there's also a fine balance of like knowing when to stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is that's in now. Is that something that you guys talk to your clients about? Like, is that like an educational thing from the yeast producer side?
It would be, not necessarily for myself. It would be more our R&D that would look at things like that.
Okay.
So Gerald at our lab, for example, he's part of the Master Brewers Association. Sorry, vice president of the Master Brewers Association.
Okay.
So to have a member of the team at the Labo of that standard, and I think he was a master brewer in Belgium for maybe 20 years as well.
Damn.
So to have that experience and that knowledge in our team is absolutely kind of, how would you say it? Not invaluable, but what's the word I'm looking for?
Definitely invaluable.
Invaluable. Yeah. Sorry, that is the word I'm looking for.
I think it is exactly the word. Yeah, that's crazy. I didn't know what you're talking about. I had Rudy from Rodenbach on the pod pre-COVID, and he was a master brewer. It was the first time I'd really like heard that term. So that's some like serious. That dude is serious. Then if he's a master brewer, and then he's sort of running the yeast program, that's like a cool like second life. Probably because being a brewer is hard as hell. You gotta lift heavy shit and like get up early and stuff. But like, then you could come in and just like figure out some cool stuff with yeast. I love that. That's awesome.
No, exactly. And I mean, even as I said, that he's the vice president of the Master Brewers Association of Canada. It's as I said, it speaks volumes for his experience and his knowledge is just incredible.
So he figures stuff out, but then do you use the information that he has to say to your clients, hey, so if you're going to use this particular yeast that we've got right here, once you go over X number of pounds per liter, whatever it is, of dry hopping, it's going to kind of become redundant because what the hops are going to do is biotransform it into these flavors, which are going to support that, blah, blah, blah. Is that something that's sort of utilized at all as far as like, yeah?
Oh, absolutely. But I mean, it doesn't just go as far as the hops and the reaction it's having with the yeast.
Okay.
I mean, it's just going down to the finer details of when a brewer has a question for me that I wouldn't necessarily be super confident to answer in full faith. It would be just it's just incredible to be able to like turn to Gerald, send a quick text to him and say, hey man, have this question, client wants this, and just to be able to have that rapid response rather than going searching for the answer over the internet for like days and days and days. Just to have that backup support in the lab for us sales representatives, it's really really incredible.
That's dope. I love that. And speaking of that, you mentioned the R&D stuff. I hadn't really thought about this until now, but like, what does that look like for a yeast company? Like, how do you approach research and development for new strains? Like, is it looking for new strains? Is it tweaking existing ones to amplify them or make them better? Like, what does that look like?
It would probably be a blend of all the above. But speaking of blends, it would be probably being able to blend certain strains together to create a new profile as well. For us at the Labo, we're not super delving deep into like that, like coming up with all sorts of different strains and like going completely wacky. Our really focus is like cost reducing, efficient service that the brewer is going to get exactly what they want on time to produce their best beer possible. And then past that, we do an element of R&D, but it's not like absolutely off the walls, going crazy and just spending all our time relaying back to, how would you say, I'm gone blank.
I think I know what
But
you're
like
saying. Like, go on.
yeah, but like it's not all that focus. Our real focus is efficiency, cost reduction, and getting the brewers what they need when they need it.
Gotcha. No, I dig that. So tell me, I don't even know if you can say this because it might be like industry or company secrets or something. But like, how does one come up with a new yeast strain? Like, is that like a known thing, or is that like, hey, no, we can't say that's our whole thing?
Yeah, you can't really disclose like specific strains. I mean, you don't really make up a strain either. It's
Okay,
found.
okay, that
So,
makes sense because it's in
um,
nature, right? Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So, I mean, you can blend certain strains for sure to create
Gotcha.
that new flavor profile or that new fermentation profile,
Okay,
but not necessarily. You're not going to create a yeast overnight. You know what I mean?
gotcha. So you've got to like, I was just as I said that I was like, I don't know if it was a stupid question or not, but like, even if you want to test out new yeast, I mean, that's a time thing. You got to ferment something, so you've got to like get all right, put a bit of this one, a bit of this one, boom, boom. You're like, all right, this could be money because they all do that. Then you've got to wait for them all to probably blend together and do something, and then
Yeah,
you've
and
got
I
to
mean,
go and brew something with it.
yeah, and I mean, as of speaking about R&D, it's kind of similar to what I'm doing with the home brewing, for example, or with Passenger, being able to see how far you can push certain strains, or see the different profiles that comes out when you have lower alcohol, higher alcohol, more hops, less hops, different malts. Um, Example going back to the non-alcoholic beer.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big push forward for R&D yeast. We're currently developing a gluten-free yeast, which
Nice.
is available in dry form, but it would be one of the first liquid yeast, gluten-free yeasts.
That's cool. That's gonna be money as well. Like, I feel like that's a style that like non-alcoholic has definitely taken over as far as like non-traditional beer styles, meaning just sort of regular like beer, wheat and alcoholic. So like non-NA is definitely taken like gone crazy, and I feel like Glutenberg essentially owned that in Canada, maybe even in North America. I know every time they enter
Probably.
like you see the awards and it's like bronze, silver, gold, like all fucking Glutenberg, like they just slay it. So to be, I feel like that's an interesting one, and that could be a potential like there could be a lot more interest from the public in that moving forward. Just because like I don't know, I feel like
No,
is it you know what I mean?
you're dead right. I mean, there's a massive demand for it.
Hmm.
As I said, with Glutenberg there, and some people just choose to drink gluten-free beer, but all others, it's a necessity in their life.
Of course, yeah.
The same with some people just can't or choose not to consume alcohol, so there's going to be a demand there, and especially with the younger generations coming up and being more health conscious, more focused on those elements of their life.
Hmm.
There's always going to be growth in those markets.
I love that. Yeah, I think it's almost like no one really talks about it. So I'm glad you brought that up, though. I hadn't really thought much about gluten-free beer because the NA had taken up the space because it was a newer thing. I mean, obviously it had been around, but I don't think there was any great ones until the last few years. And now there's like a ton of great ones, which is really
Yeah.
fun. But then gluten-free is something that like I feel like over time, more and more people are becoming like, whether it's celiac or just gluten intolerant or sensitive or whatever. I think technically, I did a blood test last year, and I had lactose, which is Nate and I have a Twitter account called Team Lactose for lactose in beer. and I found I'm not intolerant to anything but sensitive. And another thing was yeast and wheat. So I'm like, fuck everything, but not enough
man.
to. I know it's the what, but I'm fine. There's not that I can tell. There's any specific reactions, but I guess what I was trying to say, I feel like over time, and maybe people like our age-ish, where like, you know, 80s and 90s and going hard on a lot of packaged foods that were being introduced, microwave foods, and a lot more, you know, wheats and everything, and all these different things, people, and milks and everything, people start to become around this time a lot more sensitive to that. That's probably why there's a lot of gluten sensitivity stuff out there, along with, what's the other one? There's gluten, I guess lactose. Unless I'm tripping out, I just mean gluten. But just different things that people are realizing because we overdid it in life. And then, you know, that is important. Plus, if you can make gluten-free beers, like gluten-free beers are really, really good. Like, I would bet there'd be a bunch of them that you wouldn't be able to really tell that are gluten-free.
No, big time. And as you said, sorry, go ahead, Nick.
Oh no, sorry. Go ahead. I'll go after.
But as you said as well, like the more the science develops, and the more those beers become approachable for the non-necessary drinkers of those styles of beer, and more appealing for like those hazy non-alcoholics, or like those true tasting gluten-free beers. I mean, it's just absolutely incredible for the development of the industry in general.
Yeah. And I think that like doing like whether it's gluten free or even gluten reduced, like and I of course don't I don't know what the requirements are for people with celiac, or if they're even gluten intolerant, but it seems to be possible. Like more than we might think, and like the example that comes to mind is Perth Brewery. I don't know if it's still the case, but at least it was at a time a few years ago where they were saying like all of their beers of all styles, and they brew the whole gamut of styles, were below whatever it is X parts per million of gluten, which most people with gluten intolerances can in fact drink, which I thought was really interesting.
I guess that's got to do with the grain content then.
I would assume. I don't know. It would be an interesting conversation to have.
Yeah, it's something that I'm not massively familiar with either, on the brewing side of that style of beer, but definitely see the demand for it in the market.
Yeah. So, who are you selling? Are you selling a lot of the gluten-free yeast? Sorry, you're saying so there's yeast. Now I'm just realizing, is gluten-free the grain? You know how they use millet and buckwheat and everything. Is that,
It's
or is there a yeast specifically to work with those grains as opposed to working with barley and wheat and stuff?
Yeah, so your dry yeasts for the most part are gluten free, but it's very, very difficult to create a liquid gluten
Hmm.
free yeast.
What?
So that's why we're currently in the stages R&D wise of creating that, and it should be
Understood.
released in the next probably couple of weeks, I'm pretty sure.
Okay,
So
so that's another mind blower. So there's gluten in yeast itself.
yeah,
Uh, how? Why?
that would be a question that I would turn to Gerald for, because I am not entirely sure.
No problem. That, I mean, it's probably derivative of what makes up the liquid or whatever the fuck. Um,
Yeah.
that's
But
fascinating.
basically going back to that production of your liquid yeast, um, and using like grain to, or the malt extract to grow that yeast, feed it sugar, and then develop the ability to crop off and then send out to different breweries.
Hmm.
That's as
Nice.
far that's as far that's as far as my knowledge would go on it anyway.
Gotcha. No, no problem, dude. This is like, once again, this is like new to us, and there's so many things that we've realized, or you didn't know that you didn't know about yeast, and never even thought to ask until now. So it's
Mm.
obviously, yeah. If we throw shit at you, no stress at all. Um, I'm looking at the time again. Shall we? get that next one?
Yeah.
Still got a few slappers to go.
I don't know if you guys want to go for maybe the Irish Stout or the Porter.
Absolutely.
I could go for a dark beer.
I'm not scared at all. What tickles your pickle there, man?
I think we'll go with the guys at Breton Brewing with their Irish Stout.
All right.
Alrighty. Someone was telling me about these guys recently. I heard they're really good.
Yeah. So there's Breton's out in Sydney, Nova Scotia.
Okay. It's not Cape Breton, is it?
Yeah.
Is Sydney in Cape Breton?
Yeah.
Is Cape Breton a city or like a region?
It's more of a region national park, isn't it?
I don't know. I'm not from Canada. Nate, this is on you, buddy.
Yeah. Well,
Come on, Canada boy.
You're quizzing me. So I've never been to Cape Breton, so I can't I can't really speak to it, and I don't know the region all that well. The only area of Nova Scotia that I've really explored is Halifax, so I'm not the one to answer this, unfortunately.
I think Colin, you were correct. From what I can tell, it looks like a region. It's called Cape Breton Islands, and there's an area here I see called North. Oh, there's Sydney. I know Sydney because that's where you send the immigration paperwork.
Yeah, I remember that one too.
Yep. Thank fuck that's over. God, that was a nightmare. So it's a whole region out here, and I believe these guys are the only brewery out there.
Yeah, no, they have a really cool setup. I did visit once just for a quick stop off to visit them. And yeah, absolutely incredible setup those guys have out there, especially with the tourist influx during the summer.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really great to see such like a positive brewing story from like a relatively isolated area. But yeah, no, these guys are producing incredible beer, and again, shout out to the guys at Breton Brewing because they're probably one of our biggest customers outside of Quebec. So
hell yeah. Wow, this got a beautiful head on it.
Yeah, it does.
And it's 4.2. How do you feel, Colin, as an Irishman, when you drink an Irish stout that's not from Ireland? Are you judging? Are you like, oh, look at these guys trying to do this, trying to do my people like that?
I guess you could say that, but I mean, these guys seem to be doing a pretty good job of it. Might be something to do with all the Irish ancestry out there, but
that would make a lot of sense.
No, it's really incredible.
Okay.
Roasty, toasty. The yeast that's used in this one is LSB 3008, which is Irlandais or Irish in French.
LSB. Sorry, what was it, brother? I'm just going to make sure I put this in my reviews. 3008?
Yeah. We have two kind of dark beer strains that we like to promote, which is LSB 3008, and the other one is LSB 3010, which is Ecossaic and Scottish. So you kind of have the Scottish versus the Irish, and something our clients always joke about when I go to visit them. Personally, I'm a fan of the LSB 3010, which is the Ecossaic, the Scottish, just because the Irish tends to give off a bit more of drier notes and like kind of that sharpness on the end, whereas the Ecossaic would be more kind of smooth and mellow, and capable of higher ABV attenuations as well.
Gotcha. Interesting. Would you what kind of styles would you use the Scottish yeast versus the Irish yeast? Like, would you still pop that yeast in this style?
Yeah, you can do. Again, as I said, if you don't want that dryness, and that sharp finish, definitely. Both of them are fantastic for dark styles. It's just that difference between the smoothness and the dry kind of sharpness.
Gotcha. Love that. Keen to sip this, gentlemen. Get that in you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Is it slaint in Irish, they say? Is that right?
Sláinte.
Oh, that's how you say it. God, see, that's how fucking... I haven't been to Ireland, so my bad.
That's all good, man. That's all good. We're all friends around here.
Thank you. Good. Well, we descended from you, so... Oh, this is great. This is awesome, man.
Yeah.
Seriously. I love Irish stouts, man. These things kill it.
It's like, especially we went so far into talking about the weather, but like just when you have those styles and like they're just real winter warmers.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Or
I
and
drink
if
this year
we're
round,
talking
bro.
about Ireland, like just like good for just kind of like a damp
Yep.
wet day, you know,
Yep.
Yeah,
like
it's
a cool wet day.
there's an old saying I heard the other day, and it said there was a guy being interviewed in Ireland. He said, "Well, the reason we're such big fans of the pubs, it doesn't rain in the pub."
Yeah.
Well,
That's almost a good episode name.
no, that's serious though.
It doesn't rain in the pub.
No,
Yeah, that's it.
Someone was saying that.
but
Where did I hear this? I heard this somewhere, like on a podcast. Someone was talking about like how I've been to England and Scotland, but I never got to Ireland, which I really messed up in. But they were saying that like in Dublin specifically, there was like the pub culture is so dope. It's like it's something that's maybe a bit missing from North America, where like everyone's there, they're like jamming. There's like a band playing and everyone's singing and having a good time. Where maybe over here people are a little too cool and don't do that. And that there's this level of like connectivity between people in that pub culture that they thought was it might have been Rogan or something. Like someone was just saying it was beautiful. They were just like, this is the coolest thing. I was like, fuck, that sounds amazing.
yeah, no, it is definitely true to a certain degree. I'd say like the reason that people are I don't like to use the word forced, but like encouraged into that mindset is because it's the center of the community. So
Right.
it's a gathering place for people to chit chat, to do whatever they need to do in the local area. Because in most Irish villages, you're gonna have a post office, a pub, and a petrol station, and that's the run of the mill.
Gotcha. So like that pub is a centerpiece of community, like a brewery essentially, kind of a community
Yeah.
hubs.
Yeah,
That,
exactly. Which it's kind of incredible. Well, as I said, Ireland sometimes can seem maybe 10 years behind North America and those other developed craft brewery cultures.
Mhm.
But it would be great to see that, and you can start to see glimmers of hope with that happening, in Irish communities of not even just having a brewery in the local community, but having a brewery in the local county, and then having each publican support them instead of just taking the large amounts of money from the macro guys to put taps behind bars.
I can see. I 100% agree, of course, and I can see it being more challenging there because of that ingrained both pub culture and drinking culture. Whereas like it's been the same shit for hundreds of years. Like everyone's drinking Guinness or Harp or Kilkenny or whatever it might be, and that is culture. Fortunately, compared to here, the macro stuff there, I think is superior. Like Guinness to me tastes like almost nothing. I guess it's similar. It's just like 4% or whatever it is, so it doesn't taste like a ton. I would much prefer a craft brewed version, but I'm not mad at a Guinness. Where I'm like, I'm not drinking a Budweiser. Like I couldn't do it. So I can understand. But then we've only North America, Australia, all the colonies, whatever, have been New Zealand, all that stuff. We haven't been around that long, a couple hundred years tops. So the roots run deeper.
Yeah, and you can kind of say similar things to like to other European countries that kind of have centuries old brewing cultures that like specific to their region, like
Belgium
there would be similar things in Belgium, similar things in the Czech Republic, similar things in Germany, with a lot with a lot of the kind of larger like breweries that are kind of household names like everywhere now, but are certain things that we would not have like a lot of the styles that we had today without without what those breweries did centuries ago in kind of building that culture, where the craft scene is not necessarily as developed in like in those areas, but the brewing tradition is still is still centuries old like in those countries, and is very much the foundation of a lot of the beers that we enjoy today.
Yeah, no, totally. Totally.
Yeah.
And I mean, even something that you touched on earlier, Craig, was um, developing that culture. It's about creating experiences for people to want to return, and then that develops after time, that culture. So like if you have a certain beer or a certain brewery in a town, or sorry, a certain beer in a restaurant or a pub, or a certain brewery in a town that you want to go travel to, it can create that sense of culture, community, and drive to want to support what's around you. Like, because
Absolutely.
as you said, you'd never really get that experience with like Bud Light or whatever, but you will tend to get a bit more out of experiencing like a beer from Cape Breton and going to Breton Brewing and meeting the people around there. And then that creates that, oh, what an amazing time I had drinking that beer with that sensory panel. And then all of a sudden you're hooked.
That's a great point, man. It feels like, yeah, craft beer would be much more likely to create that, aside from like, you know, the European stuff. But at least if you want to say the North American communities, I think craft beer definitely is going to be the one to anchor those feelings around and get you coming back. And then if you have the great experience in a pub or a restaurant over a certain beer and you discover something that you love, then you might be like, oh, I should probably visit that brewery. That might be fun. And then it can kind of get people into beer, and then it gets them into the culture of craft beer, which I think is overwhelmingly positive. It gets a bad rap in the kind of popular culture, which sucks, like as far as the pretentiousness and the IPAs are bitter and they taste like shit. Like, all of that. I'm so tired of hearing that. It's so whack to me. Like, why are people saying that? It's such a dumbass thing to say when New England IPAs technically have been around since 2010. Like, it's so annoying, but uphill battle. This is part of the journey, and you know, convincing people to drink stuff and stuff like this. Like, I'm really impressed with this. This is fantastic. Like, these style of beers. I don't know if I say this on the pod, but I feel like I tell Nate this often. Like, I feel like I find myself reaching for low ABV dark beers way more often than I have them available in my fridge, which means I need to get more. I just feel like they're like a cool, you know, break between other beers, or a great nice way to end the night for me. Like, it kind of feels like a mini dessert, and it kind of takes away the craving to eat something garbage. It's
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, as you said as well, though, that like some people can be turned off IPAs, but for example, if you're inclined to go for a dark style beer like that, or even like something new, what the guys at Breton are bringing out, like a Breton Light, just to float your boat and like create that experience for you, rather than forcing someone into something that you believe that they should like, and that's going to be shoved down their throats. That's not going to encourage someone to come back. So,
No,
yeah.
no, putting consumers in a box never really works out well.
yeah, and like even I was kind of similar mindset to that before that. Like when I got into craft brewing, or like when I started to drink craft beers, it was always leaning towards that IPA. Whereas the more your palate develops, the more knowledgeable you become about brewing ingredients, styles from different cultures and different countries. It can really just broaden your horizon so much.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, for sure. I don't, you know, I find I'm reaching for them IPAs all the time, but I'm gonna like add something else in. You want to add a bunch of stuff in it over a session, and it's it's cool to get that different perspective. Yeah, go on, Nate.
Yeah, it's funny the kind of things that we pick up from from these different conversations, because as we were saying, like, you know, we're all like all hopheads here, but but at the same time, like thinking of when we were chatting with the guys from Third Moon, and kind of got on the bit of a kick that Chris told us about, of how he never drinks like two hazy IPAs back to back. Like he'll usually mix in a crispy in between, or mix in a dark beer between, and that's like we'd kind of never thought that before. We kind of like Craig and I have always been on the pattern of basically moving from light to dark throughout a drinking session, but like. So not even just the importance of like mixing those things into, like you learn so much just kind of when you change up what you like the box that you even put yourself in from like as far as beer styles.
Yeah. I mean, is that a question for me?
No, sorry, sorry. That wasn't really a question. I was more just riffing on the like on this idea of like I'm just kind of expanding the horizons a little bit. I may have rambled a little bit. I tend to
No,
do
you're
that
good.
sometimes.
Oh, trust.
Oh,
I do it
that's
all
all
the time too. No, it's just something that, like, I feel like there's something with what Nate's sort of saying. I think applies to maybe a subset of the market that are maybe a bunch of like hate. Like, all three of us probably identify as that. And there's some sort of, a lot of people maybe like only drink that. I know dudes who drink double IPAs, barley wines, imperial stouts, and that's it. I've given them like crispies, and they're just like, oh, I don't drink lagers. I'm like, fucking try it, bro. Like, like
yeah,
there's people who got into craft beer like through hazy IPAs and don't know anything except slow pour lagers or Luca pours, which actually is good. Haze, smoothies, and pastries. Like, that's all they know. They don't know about a 4% Irish stout or a red ale or a fucking the Belgian stuff or whatever it is. So, like, there's something to be said about sort of balancing out that beer intake. And once we saw, someone, are you familiar with Third Moon that Nate was talking about?
no,
No.
not really, no.
So they're like the hypiest of probably hype breweries in Ontario. As far as like they started in the pandemic, so they do mostly haze, pastry stouts, barrel aged stuff, but they kind of do a bit of everything. Crispies, they even did some box or whatever. But yeah, just like a haze head would probably just drink all haze. But I guess the point was more like, hey, it's interesting to try these different styles and to get to know it. But clearly all of us have been into beer a while, so we're more understanding. But I always think it's funny when there's people who don't even really know this stuff kind of exists, and when there's so many phenomenal styles out there, like stuff like this, it's like
Yeah,
crushable
but
and just flavorful.
as I said, man, that all starts with educating people as well.
Mm,
Um, I mean, you're always going to have those people that are going to be standoffish and refuse to not be forced, but like encouraged to try something different or try something new. But we all got into craft beer one way or the other by trying something new.
mm,
That's
So,
true.
I mean, for me, that's another key element in creating that culture. And I mean, it's educating people, but it's like all starts from example like the ingredients that brewers are using and educating the brewers on those ingredients that they're using to produce the product that the consumer at the end of the day is going to try something for the first time and have their mind absolutely blown.
mm.
And it's always kind of created this new effect and knock-on effect from brewery to brewery about, oh, did you hear about this new product or this new way of doing this? And just not being afraid to ask questions.
Yeah, yeah, it's a great point. I feel like maybe some people feel they can't ask questions when it comes to beer, which is unfortunate because that's that pretentious stuff that I think that people make fun of. They always see
Yeah.
like Instagram reels or whatever of like people making fun of craft beer and all of that, but I don't really see it that much. Maybe certain places it's more prevalent, but I don't really see anything sort of negative in that way. I always see everything like hella positive and encouraging and stuff for the most part. Like, not putting some, like it's okay to ask questions. Like, and if anyone is making fun of people asking questions, then you're kind of ruining everything. Like, the idea is like people, like you said, like people have to learn more about it. You're not going to get educated if you don't ask questions.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think it happens more than we realize, and
You're probably right.
it's one of those things of being in the scene as long as we have. I think it's easy for us to feel comfortable like almost anywhere we go in
Mm,
the craft in the craft beer scene. Um, but it's one of those things that I very often end up taking friends to craft beer places, and I've started to notice a trend of some places where they seem or like where they feel more intimidated
huh.
than in other places. And I get it. Like, there are some environments which are definitely more tailored to to beer nerds, and other places which are a bit more welcoming to people who are hesitant or
Newer.
not or just not quite as comfortable in the scene. as it might be. And it's not to say like someone's going to laugh at you if you don't know, like why a hazy IPA is hazy, but but it's a little more subtle than that. And like it can definitely be intimidating in some environments for sure.
Yeah, but I think it's definitely improving. I think like
Yeah.
from even when I started in the industry 5 years ago or 6 years ago, whatever it was, it's massively improved, and like the acceptance of questioning why something is something, or asking, like, even as my growth as a brewer, to be able to ask the head brewer, why are you doing that instead of that? And maybe it might spark an idea in their head. And it's just, at the end of the day, we're not working against each other. We're working to make a better product for everyone. So the only way we get better is by learning.
Yeah, most definitely.
Preach.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Should we? I'm enjoying this beer a lot though. But is there?
Yeah,
should we go?
too.
This is killer, man. Seriously.
I'd like definitely be finishing this one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we should move it along, because I think we've got at least two more that we want to get through.
Yes.
So we should. Yeah.
Alrighty.
I'm gonna use the toilet if that's okay.
Oh, you know what? Let's take a pause. We'll all go to the bathroom. And I like that you said
that.
toilet. No one here says toilet. Big ups toilet. I'll see you in a second. Alrighty. Bladders could not be emptier. Is that what I say every time and I forget that I say it?
That is what you say absolutely every time.
And I feel like it's really witty and clever. Yeah, there we go. Fucking hell. Alrighty. Colin, what are we saying? I'm just going to wrap up this Irish stout right here.
I'm going to leave this one to Nate.
Well, I think I think we've got at least two left. So we've got one dark one left. So I would say let's go lighter on this one, and let's do the Kichesippi Vienna Lager.
That's a great call.
Great show.
What a hilarious name. Sasquatch Schnitzel. That's funny. Was it always called this?
So I'll jump in and just because these guys are local for me, and I'll and I'll just tell you something that they've been doing lately with their seasonal releases. It's all been Sasquatch something. And for some reason the names of the other ones are escaping me right now, but it's been Sasquatch blank for a bunch of their recent seasonal releases, and they just dropped one called, I think, Sasquatch Spark Street for their new pop-up shop, which is a cream ale, but this one was released a few months ago, this Vienna lager here.
Hell yeah. Big faith. Yeah, tell us about I guess everything you know about this one, Colin, like as far as the yeast and all that good stuff.
Yeah, well, as Nate said, Phil and the team in Kichesippi are knocking out absolutely fantastic beers. More of like a lager focused brewery for sure.
Yeah.
Which hence the name or the nickname German Phil, the master brewer there.
Phil.
But yeah, Phil, again, going back to this is another Staffelberg, LSB 50009. Phil took the decision based on what I explained previously to switch this to a house lager strain.
Mm-hmm.
So he's knocking out some absolutely incredible beers with that, and based on its versatility, they can really push the boundaries with this strain and knock out some fantastic beers.
Hell yeah, German Phil, I like that. So that's serious. I didn't know Kichesippi. I've had Kichesippi beers many times, but I didn't realize they were mad dedicated to the to that. Could you repeat again? So this was the yeast was it the Franconian?
The Franconian, again, the Staffelberg is the name, but it's a Franconian strain.
Okay, LSB 5009.
Yeah, that's the one, man.
Staffelberg. Love it. Just want to make sure I note down, because this is like probably one of the first times I've ever done all these reviews and proactively like put the yeast down, so it's kind of fun because it's completely different for me.
I don't know if you guys can fill me the Sasquatch Farms. That's an Ontario hop farm. Is that correct?
Hops Connect. Our friend works for Hops Connect.
Ontario with.
So
So I know,
yes.
I know that Sasquatch is the only, it's the first and so far only Canadian hop. Um, Sasquatch Farms. I'm not sure about the farm itself. I know that the hop strain is called Sasquatch.
Yes, it's
Um,
from Pemberton, BC.
right.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's
But
where
this
it
is
said it
saying,
was
but this is saying in
developed and grown.
Ontario, Ontario Sasquatch hops, and it does say Sasquatch Farms by Hops Connect. So I'm wondering if that if there must be a Sasquatch farm
Did you
hop
see
farm.
where does it say Ontario specifically?
So in the description here, it says Sasquatch Schnitzel is a Vienna-style lager brewed with
Oh,
Ontario M3 Vienna malt and Ontario Sasquatch hops.
Okay, so
Huh?
do you know what? I'm on the Hops Connect website, and they are saying it was developed and grown exclusively at our farms in Pemberton, BC. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
in Pemberton, BC, the Fraser Valley, and Southern Ontario. There you go.
Ah, there we
I
are.
missed that part. I just read the first
We
one.
got there. We got there.
So it's a Hops Connect product that uses that. That's cool. Yeah, I forgot about
That's
that.
really-
This was
Really incredible.
this was a from Ontario. There was that specifically. Well, first and foremost, gentlemen, get that in you. Cheers.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers, gents.
Nice.
That's delicious.
Banger
Delicious
of
beer.
Vienna.
Ooh,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's kind of it's great to know that about the Sasquatch farms, because again, that's tying back to what I was saying earlier, using your most local supplier, supporting what's around you,
Yeah.
especially when you can source it, doing as much as you can to support the guys that are likely going to be finishing their day and coming drinking your beer. So, yeah, hats off to Kichesippi for that innovation.
Very cool
Absolutely.
that they're supporting that, and I always forget, that the Sasquatch is the only Canadian proprietary hop, which is very cool.
It is.
The only rocking that. Go on, Nate. Talk to me.
No, I was gonna say that this is a fucking tasty beer right here. Like I said, I've had this one before, but it's been a couple of months, and it's holding up beautifully. It's really bready, but with this and it's got a gorgeous amber hue. You guys probably saw a big fluffy head.
Yeah.
And it's got a really really nice kind of honey sweetness, which goes beautifully with the kind of thick bready profile that it's got to it. It's this is a beautiful crispy right here.
Yeah, she slaps. That goes hard. Everything you said.
It's
Definitely that honey.
it's kind of funny. It makes you want to like chop your lips all the time.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of what you're saying. That sticky honey flavor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that could be why. It's almost got a little bit of like that sort of roastiness as well to kind of balance it out. So whilst that honey flavor is there, that makes you want to smack. It's also like rounded and not sort of not too sweet. It's definitely in that great spot. Which makes a lot of sense, being that German Phil, big German Phil. I love that.
Yeah.
Brewing
But
out
again,
stuff. Yeah.
For I know we have another one of Phil's beers here, the Hellas, but it'll just show you the variety of lager styles that you can make with LSB 5009, sorry, should I say? Just anything from those really malty, bready lagers to like those crisp, clean, even dry hopped lagers. It's incredible the versatility that you can push with that strain.
Yeah. And honestly, I think this is part of the fun, I think, of this particular podcast, is that we've had two very different beers with the same yeast, which is super cool, being that it was the raspberry lemon Pilsner and this, which is
Exactly.
very different beers, but it delivers. And then I feel like we've had this is actually like looking back just at the cans here and stuff, like the from a non-alcoholic one, then the juicy one in the Westie, and then the the American IPA yeast and the dry stout yeast. The Irish one, like it's super fun, man. I really like that. It's cool. I don't think we've ever done anything like that. Comparing yeast, there's usually like, here's a single hop beer in this one and blah blah blah, but never really like got nerdy about the yeast itself, which is sick. Just fun.
Yeah,
And
no, big time, big time. And like as I said, going back to the more you guys learn about it and the more you can pass on the knowledge, and this podcast can pass on the knowledge to more and more people, either whether it's using those different strains and knowing what's available on the market, or knowing the local suppliers on the market that Canadian brewers can go to is just super important, I think.
yeah, definitely agree, and that's why when we connected, this was such a great idea to talk about it and to try the beers that are using different yeasts, and particularly multiple beers from different breweries that use the same yeast, which is even more fun.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, even as well, something that I probably didn't touch on earlier, but like logistics can prove to be a bit of a challenging thing sometimes with breweries. But something for us is like a liquid supplier. If we have it in stock, it's really, really quick to get across the country. We've had yeast get from an hour northwest of Quebec City, which is where our lab is, to Vancouver within 48 hours. So to have like a brewery, let's say, place an order on a Monday, shipped on the Wednesday, and get there for brewing on Friday, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, that's and I imagine that's probably I guess breweries sometimes need something in a pinch, and that's something that you're able to deliver on.
Exactly. Even for me as a brewer, I always kind of, as I said, kind of last resort was going to dry yeast. But if the liquid yeast store had it in stock, I'd always side with liquid. So just even for me to come over and start with Labo and have that kind of turnaround time to get the yeast out the door to the brewer, like from our door to theirs within 48 hours, just huge kind of versatility for the brewer to work with.
Yeah, that's important. I know sometimes as things come up and like, oh no, we're out of this, or it's spilled, oh shit, now we need this, it's cool that you're able to do that. And even now I think about it, I don't know if I've seen anyone use dry yeast in any brewery that I've been at, aside from when we I don't homebrew, but back in the day, like 14 years ago, probably 13 years ago, homebrewing a bit. It was, even then, do those Brewers Best kits come with like dry or liquid? I think it's liquid. I think even that's liquid.
I'm not really sure, to be honest with you. I've never used those kits, so.
Yeah, good. You went straight to the big stuff. I can't even remember, but either, which is better. But it's it's definitely like it makes complete sense. I always feel like I see those little containers of yeast that everybody's using. So it clearly is like the superior option.
Well, I mean, just from a quality standpoint and from a versatility standpoint, it's definitely your go-to. Just like a little bit trickier to work with, but if you have your organization relatively down to a T, it's pretty easy to get around, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's it's really cool. On yeast in general, like, is there something that like about yeast is like, what would be stuff that maybe people should know about yeast that don't know about it, or like something misunderstood about it? And this might not be aimed at maybe a question for the brewers to hear, but just for maybe just beer drinkers and stuff, because I just feel like I don't really understand the full power of yeast with everything. So like, is there anything that's like really misunderstood about it? Like, oh, yeast is actually responsible for X% of the flavor of the beer. You might think it's the hops or whatever, but it's really the stuff like that. Like, is there anything about yeast that you feel like people really should know to understand it better?
That would really come down to the beer profile. I mean, if you drink any Belgian beer, for example, I'm gonna say like on average your 75% of your flavor is coming from the Belgian yeast that you're using.
Wow,
It's
75, eh?
it's such, yeah, that's in my opinion, that's what it would be.
Gotcha.
I know you can't necessarily pinpoint exactly the percentage of the flavor in that beer, but when I drink a Belgian beer, I definitely pick up 75% of the flavor profile coming from the yeast.
Right.
And that's something like that's also pretty huge for us, is that we used to only sell yeast that was being able to crop and repitch based on the cell count that I explained earlier. But right now we are selling single pitch yeast. So let's say a brewery wanted to brew a single brew with a certain strain, for example, a Belgian, and then dump it. We're selling a reduced cost Belgian, or a reduced cost strain that you can single use and then send down the drain.
Okay. What?
Basically, because
Yeah. Go.
basically because the cell count that we're selling is about 30% less than what our crop and repitch. So we can't. We're not saying that you can't crop and repitch it, but we just don't encourage it because the cell count has been reduced by that amount.
Right. That's genius. Because then, would you say that most breweries would try to like propagate and repitch that yeast again? That's the aim. Like you buy it once and then you like propagate it for as long as possible. But then if you want to do a one-off, then you're like, oh well, I don't need that big thing with all of the cells in it. Give me like a half amount or whatever.
Yeah, so like that 75 or 70% rate is going to allow you to do your seasonal brew that you had that one-off for summer, or that one-off Oktoberfest beer, and then you want to send to the drain, rather than the crop and repitch rate, which would be for the brewer that wants it as his house strain. So like your Brumlund and Yen, or your Juteuse, or your Staffelberg, that you want to use 10, 15, 20 times. Usually for lagers, I'm looking at 15 to 20 generations. But for ales, you're looking around 8 to 10 generations, and then it's a good idea to kind of send it down the drain. But again, that comes down to the brewery's lab team and their technology that they have in the lab to do those cell counts, and to know your viability is on point to be able to push it that far.
Interesting. So essentially, I've been to a bunch of breweries that have those yeast labs, and I never really understood what the fuck was going on there. So what they're doing is taking the leftovers from a brew and being like, all right, are they the ones that propagate it, and they're the ones that be like test the viability of a yeast, be like, hey, we've got enough here, so I'm going to go ahead and make another batch of this? Is that really what it comes down to?
Yeah, basically you're taking a sample of your yeast through generation to generation, checking its viability, checking its cleanliness as well, to make sure it hasn't been compromised, and then turning to the brewers and saying, yeah, you're good to crop repitch that, or nah, we're gonna dump that and reorder.
What would compromise the yeast? What does that look like?
Any kind of pathogens that are going to cause spoilage in the beer, but cause spoilage in the yeast as well. So any bacterias, openness to the elements, badly managed yeast, just all those, any elements that basically expose the yeast to bad bacteria, bad pathogens, and wild yeasts.
Oh, of course, yeah. Well, that makes complete sense. Yeah.
I'm like, and as you mentioned, wild yeast. I'm guessing the answer is no to this, but do you guys deal in Brett at all?
We do have some Brett strains, yeah.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah. So any wild breweries out there that are interested in our catalog, we still cater to them for sure.
Right on.
Is it just Brett, or is it the others like PDO and the other one?
We do lacto and all as well, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
how how to say it, like a lot of breweries who do wild beers either have like, this is our wild fermenter or whatever. This is where we pitch that shit. Like we don't, like they keep it very like specific. Like how important is that, and how like common are the infections, I guess, for lack of a better word?
We've never had an issue with it. Obviously, if going back to what I said there, if your yeast management is not up to standard, you're going to start encounter problems. You're going to start having secondary fermentation in cans, cross-contamination of yeasts, and your quality is just going to drop drastically. Whereas
your IPAs are going to turn into American wild ales.
Yeah, exactly. And some breweries roll with that, but yeah, preferences
It's
to
not
stay away
ideal.
from it. So
It's not ideal.
no,
No, I
we
didn't.
we do assist breweries with troubleshooting in those situations as well, when they don't have those facilities in their labs to figure out what the problem is and how best to address it. So it's pretty cool to have our lab team on hand to address those situations for breweries as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. The secondary fermentation in cans, how does that happen? So is
Basically
it like
through
yeast that
infection.
aren't killed?
Yeah, if you have residual sugars left in your beer that
Mhm.
are unfermented, and your cans get cross-contaminated with other yeast strains, then you're gonna have bulging cans and big problems, exploding
Right.
shelves.
Definitely don't want that. Definitely I've experienced that a bunch. It's not fun. That's what I've seen breweries like sort of panic over a lot, and fair enough too. You know that there's some breweries who don't do any sour parts. I even went in a bench brewing in Niagara. There they don't. They used to have they stopped doing sour beers, but they had a full separate, completely sealed off section where they did all their sour beers. The funk side they called it, compared to the clean side, because they were so like they had like a full thing, and I hadn't seen anything like that before that was that like closed off.
Yeah, no,
To the others.
it's the same thing. What I was saying about my introduction to craft brewing when I got my first gig at Garage Project, to be exposed to the Wild Workshop, which was their wild fermentation brewery, and then they had the other brewery 5 kilometers away,
Mm-hmm.
which was huge, and they just brewed all the hot side at the clean brewery, took it down in IBCs to the Wild Workshop, and then pitched that worked into the fermenters at the Wild Workshop. So it's just keeping that completely separate, keeping things
Right.
safe, making sure you don't compromise anything.
Smart is the way to go.
Mm.
On that note, say barrel aging. Is
Mhm.
there a specific yeast strain for different barrels? Say if you're doing, I mean, obviously there is. If you know, we're talking about Brett and PDO and lacto and all that stuff for doing like sours. But say if you're doing like a barrel aged stout or something, like, do you require a different yeast to be active in a barrel, or say you pitch, and there's going to be, and you're using a bourbon barrel, and within that bourbon are probably other yeast and stuff as well. Um, what's that sort of ecosystem look like?
It depends, again, what you said about what flavor profile you're going for. I
Okay.
mean, if you're going for an imperial stout barrel aged, you're going to need like what I spoke about earlier, the Echo Says, because it's higher attenuating, better for high alcohol beers, but it's still going to give you that like um dark beer flavor profile, if you know what I mean.
Right.
So, I mean,
But you can use
that
the same yeast in a barrel aged beer than you can in a non barrel aged beer.
yeah, unless it's again going back to those wild or lactose or lacto profiles, then you're going to need the specific knowledge on what flavor profile you're looking for.
Gotcha. It was more like I was just thinking like, is there like a, hey, if you're gonna do a barrel aged beer, you need X, like because it interacts with barrels differently than if it's being aged in stainless. or whatever. That was kind of
No, not
same shit.
not necessarily.
Okay.
No. Yeah,
That makes
it's
sense.
just again going back to those bacteria additions of Breton lacto.
Right.
That if you want that extra secondary fermentation funk,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to need to narrow down your knowledge on what profile you're actually looking for.
Right. So it's a whole other conversation, I guess.
Yeah.
Are they, what I've heard, like I'm noticing, it depends on the market. Maybe in Quebec, you're probably not going to relate to this because I feel like in Quebec, the farmhouse beers are killing it still. Everything's still everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible. Like even we were speaking about the Alchemist earlier on, and when I go into Vermont, I actually look forward to returning to Quebec just for the variety of styles that are here, and it's something that blew my mind when I arrived here as well. Just like how far brewers are willing to push things is just spectacular.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's something that Quebec is a bit of a quiet giant for
the farmhouse stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, like it's crazy. Nothing, and it's this. I was talking to someone about this the other day, and I can't remember who, but the like say on Ontario, unfortunately, there's a brewery here called Stillfields that closed earlier this year, and they did exclusively farmhouse, and this shit was exceptional. But it's just the Ontario market doesn't sustain it. Like breweries can do one-off funk beers or whatever, but it's very rare that a brewery would completely exist off that. Though Barrelheart just opened up here in Dundas, close to Hamilton. And they are just opened up a beautiful tap room. They're killing it, doing exclusively barrel-aged fucking farmhouse stuff, which is amazing and unheard of for Ontario. Then you look at Quebec, and you could sit here for 10 minutes and just name off different breweries that are doing some killer stuff.
And we don't need to waste time like going down that. But like even if you just like just to pick one, if you just look at Oval, which are pretty maybe not world renowned, but like certainly renowned across Canada and definitely in the northern United States for being some of the best at that craft.
For sure.
No, they're spectacular beers, and they are one of our customers as well. So.
Oh really?
Fantastic!
Hell yeah! That's a big cosign for your farmhouse stuff.
Absolutely.
That's huge. So that was kind of really where I was going with this. I was curious as to the, and it's kind of almost like not the greatest question because you're in Quebec, but like, the farmhouse yeast and all those, the sour yeast and stuff are still killing it out there. Mm-hmm. Are you selling a lot outside of Quebec, I guess probably is a better question, of that specifics, those strains that would make farmhouse saisons, and all of the wild stuff, Brett, etc.
Yeah, I mean saisons for sure. Based on our catalog, we're second to none really with the variety of strains in Belgium that you can go with. Mm-hmm. But with regards to wild and like farmhouse, not so much. Like gotcha. As you said, the market just doesn't seem to be there much outside of Quebec.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate because I'm the same as you guys, an absolute massive fan of those styles. So, hopefully, when the market ages and kind of the IPAs kind of step away from the limelight, then those beers will start to shine, kind of as they do a bit more in Europe.
Yeah, definitely they would out there. It's interesting that it's like in regional, like probably similar-ish to Europe. I imagine they're probably not popping in Germany or Czech, but in Belgium and some other places, I imagine they're slaying. Yeah, and being that Quebec has all of that, I was just curious if it's still happening, because I guess there's still breweries out here that are doing stuff in general in that zone, but there's not that many that just focus on that. Where there was so many in Quebec that just focus on that, you know what I mean? Which is just indicative of the market.
Big time.
And then the yeast and stuff from there. Yeah, it's that's always an interesting one, as far as where that's going. But happy to hear that it's still killing it out there, and that's like, I know that that's probably where a lot of, it's almost like the people who are there don't like almost take it for granted, because I see that like maybe there's cats out here because you can't really get it at scale that you can with that volume. So they're going to be really excited about going to Quebec to get all those farmhouse bottles, and maybe the people from Quebec want to come out here for different reasons and go to Vermont for different reasons and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, no, definitely. It's a case of just you don't know what you got till it's gone kind of thing.
Yeah.
So when you step outside your norm, for example, you look back and say, "Oh, well, that's pretty incredible what we're doing there," or how can we do what they're doing here? Like it all goes back to that learning curve that we spoke about earlier.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Even just moving from, I was in Quebec for 10 years and then out here for the last almost 2 years, like now, because Nate's in Ottawa, he will go and get me Nano Cinco and Sir John and, Brewski, Masorum, all the stuff that I miss from Quebec. I'm like, yes, fuck. And I'm like, it was in my front, out my back door for a decade, and I drank it a lot there, but now I'm over here and I can't get it. You're like, oh, please let me get that stuff. And it's this different level of appreciation when you're not around it every day. It's very cool.
No, big time.
Yeah, I love that. So, do you, as far as like the future of everything, do we have another beer to get to as well, or is this the last one?
We do. We've still got the passenger porter.
Okay, so we could maybe crack that. Should we crack that now and then
and wrap it up?
Bring it on home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hells yeah! This Vienna is fantastic. I'm loving this.
Yeah.
But who can go past the porter? God damn, I love porters. Oh, 7%. Let's go. So,
the fire pine.
You know, I thought this one because of pine. This might have been the Westie.
Right.
But it was not. It was this beautiful porter. Tell us about this one, Colin.
Yeah. So again, another inspiration from the mountains, if you will.
Nice.
Really wanted to incorporate as much of that like winter warmer vibe, sitting by the fire. You got that roastiness, pininess, coffee. We added spruce tips to this beer actually.
Okay.
So spruce tips, some coffee malts,
Porter.
roasted malts, and maple syrup as well.
Damn.
Ooh, goddamn.
Spruce tips in a porter is definitely something. Uh-oh.
Yeah, that's new.
Never heard of that before. Oh, okay. Even just sipping
Look
the foam.
at that.
It's like the foam was like, let me get out of here. Smell
It was pretty incredible. I know it's up at 7%, but when I first took a sip of this beer, I kind of was leaning towards almost that barrel age profile, if you know what I mean.
Okay.
Just with the high alcohol percentage, the really roasted pininess. Yeah, no, it's pretty insane. I'm definitely one of my my proudest recipes for sure.
Amazing. Then is this like a time of year type beer as far as like I know porters. I feel like porters are kind of like year round, but like particularly with the additional ingredients with the spruce and stuff like that. Was this like brewed for a specific season?
Not necessarily. Mostly kind of fall winter months. Again, just like that beer that you want to grab, pour beside a fire, just sip away, and just mellow out. Really, it was that was the idea behind it.
Okay.
Plus the alcohol percentage kind of giving you that warm vibe as well.
Okay.
It's pretty cool.
No, I messed with that. I assumed as much based on the I guess the mascot is kind of like a chicken, like a rooster.
Yeah.
And he's
So
sitting by a fire here chilling.
yeah, pretty much. It was the recipe after the West Coast IPA or the Sea to Sky. So once
Okay.
he's done traveling from the sea or from Vancouver to Worcester, just chilling in the mountains. Snow has arrived, getting ready for skiing, sitting by the fire. That's
love
just
it.
just a proper chill out moment.
I love it. I'm here for it. And why did you decide to add the maple syrup and spruce tips to this bad boy?
So the maple syrup was really for like that added sweetness,
Mm-hmm.
but to also up the alcohol percentage. So like fermenting with those sugars rather than your traditional malted sugars.
Okay.
And then the spruce tips were to add bitterness to it.
Gotcha.
So we added some hops, but it was like spruce mixed with the hop addition that gives that bitterness.
Gotcha. Interesting. Gentlemen, cheers. Get that up, yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Hell yeah. So like spruce, when I've had it in beer, typically I'm not the biggest fan of it because I feel like it overwhelms. I feel like it's a great supporting character, but more times than not, it's like eating a pine leaf. This does not taste like that at all. I feel like it's super in the background.
Agreed. I don't
Yeah.
like. I wouldn't have known it. Like if it was
didn't say it?
there if you hadn't told
Yeah.
us.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Definitely
I think-
would not have guessed that.
Again, I'm going to touch on the yeast profile that I used was LSB 3010, which is the Echo Says that I talked about earlier.
Mm.
It really, really just helps with that smoothness. It just
Okay.
balances everything out so much. Preferably, I would have nitroed this beer instead of CO2,
Mm.
but unfortunately, the guys at Les Bas didn't have access to nitro, so it was out of the question. But yeah, it's still incredibly smooth on CO2 as well.
Yeah,
I could see this being dope on nitro for sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
But again,
I find that the maple syrup is even very nicely subtle on this. It's not like it's providing, I think, the right amount of additional sweetness without being cloying or really overpowering it.
yeah, and that's again the reason I kind of put it in there was you get the smoothness out of the yeast, you get the smoothness out of the malt bill, but at the same time, once it hits the back of your tongue, goes down your throat, you're just left on the back of your palate with that touch of maple syrup, wanting you to go back for that bitterness on your first taste again, you know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
So-
That's really well done. The combo really complements itself nicely there. I think with all of the different elements that you've highlighted.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And again, just have to give testimony to the yeast that's added as well. It's similar beer profile to the Breton beer, but it's not at the same time, if that makes any
Mhm.
sense.
Right.
You can taste those subtle differences in those yeasts. How this one just slips down, whereas the Breton one just kind of sticks to your tongue a bit more.
Mm. Gotcha. Which is the different. Okay, I totally feel you. It's probably better for the one with the higher ABV to be drier for that reason. So it's
Yeah,
not sticking
well-
around too much, not become, and that helps it become not cloying, I guess.
Definitely. But I mean,
yeah.
the Ecossais would tend to be a bit more smoother than the Irlandais for sure.
I like that. I feel like I'm getting a bunch of like peppery spice or some sort of like spices.
Yeah, and that's it's something I kind of recognized with that beer as well when it was finished and canned was it's almost going like almost Baltic Porter-esque without
Mm.
actually a Baltic Porter.
Right.
And I think that's the kind of notes that you're picking up.
Yeah. I was thinking it's sort of a, how you say it, because the spruce and the hops are, everything's really subtle, like kind of like with the maple with that, and it kind of almost feels like the peppery is coming from that. But where do you think it's coming from? From the yeast, you think, or from the
Yeah, well, it could be more so from the spruce tips.
from the tip? That was my initial thought. Was that like, okay, well, it's delivering like not the typical. That was probably where I'm coming from. It's not the typical spruce experience. I've had spruce and never had it in a dark beer. It's always been
Yeah, neither have
like
I.
an amber or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And it just dominates so much, and it's a very intense flavor, and sort of a bit of an what's the word? Acquired taste. So I've never seen it because I've never seen it in a dark beer, and I guess also the dark malts can kind of like push it down a bit, hopefully, and make it more like a supporting player that just adds this interesting little like touch to it. But like as we said, if you didn't tell us that it had spruce tips, we probably wouldn't have known and just thought it was this kind of like little it's like this little warming, spicy little thing in the background.
Yeah. No, definitely. But no, it's a really impressive recipe, and kind of one that I'm again just maximizing the yeast's ability in that recipe, and being able to push boundaries, because as I said, if you were kind of producing such incredibly large volumes of a certain beer, you might be a bit more risk adverse, but like, or sorry, risk forward. But now being able to produce beers at a certain level, and be less risk adverse, then it's pretty cool to be able to push things forward like that.
Yeah, man, it's great. And when did this one drop?
This was, I want to say, September last year.
Okay, how did it go
September,
over the winter? Fall and winter?
September, October.
September,
Yeah, no, it
October.
was
Okay.
very well received.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's yeah, with the winter that we had, I think we could have had sales a bit better.
Yeah.
Just people, if the weather was a bit colder, people
Yeah.
would tend to go for your higher alcohol beers, more roasty toasty. But the way the temperature played out, it probably ended up being more of the people that would have tended to go towards those beers stayed on their IPAs, if you know what I mean.
Gotcha. That makes a
Yeah.
lot of sense.
I
And
get that.
it's almost funnier hearing that from Quebec because I know how bad it's still like what you guys got was soft for Quebec, and it was not even
Mm.
remote. I'm living there for 10 years, looking at the people in Ontario, mad as shit. Like you guys are just getting this amazing life, and now I'm getting this good life for Canada, and now I'm seeing y'all. I'm just like, oh guys, my heart goes out to it, and I like hearing that it's soft, but it's still not soft because it's raining right now, and I saw people posting from Montreal that it was just fucking bucketing snow today. Yeah,
That's what I was doing here. Yeah.
that not because Ottawa gets the same. It's like it seems to be like Ottawa, Montreal, Vermont. So it's the same weather.
Yeah,
It's
it's
always
been like
been.
20. It's been like 24 hours of snow today. It's wild. Like after full on spring weather for like 3 weeks straight.
How do you feel about that?
um, like here we go again. Like so, BAOS is a weather podcast from now on. Just telling you that now. No, like how I feel about it is like this winter was freaky as fuck. Like
Yeah.
it's like the planet is dying. Like this is kind of what it feels like. Like it's freakishly warm this winter. It like it was like it was weird. It was really weird. And even coming from last winter, was not even particularly cold, but it was kind of just that temperature where, because you know how it's kind of one of those things of if you hit like minus 30 for a while, like it doesn't snow when it's minus 30, but if the temperature hovers around like minus 5, that's when you that's when you get the snow. And we got a shitload of snow last winter.
Yeah.
It was the kind of thing of like coming out my front door was basically like a trench on either side of snow piles. But this winter was so mild. We got almost no snow, and the past 3 or 4 weeks have basically felt like spring. And then today, we got a dump of snow from last night straight through all day today. But like it's all gonna melt again in the next 2 days when the temperature goes back up to like 9 or 10 degrees.
Good.
But it's not completely off topic either, though. I know, like I'm gonna revert it back to beer now.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you,
saving
Colin.
us.
Thank you, Colin. You're bringing us back to BAOS.
Somebody has some sense around here.
It's not totally off topic as well, because people's kind of palates and preferences do side with the weather.
It's
I mean,
true.
you're not,
No, you're right. You're right.
and the beer industry is not oblivious to that either. Like, you're going to expect a hard winter every time. Sometimes it doesn't work out, sometimes it does, but you roll with it. Like, and some people, even in 5-10 degree weather, like their porters or like their high alcohol beers, and that's fine. But like, unfortunately, the majority are not going to lean towards those styles of beers when it gets to those temperatures, and we experienced the weather that we did. So
Yeah.
No,
No,
you're
that makes
right.
sense. That makes sense.
Unless
So,
unless you're our friend Noah Forrest, who drinks 14% imperial
stouts.
barrel aged stouts in the middle of summer.
Yeah. You know what? I respect it.
crazy, man.
I started doing that too now. Every Wednesday, that's my stout night, and I've been getting a lot from the States, and they're all 14, 15%. They're not like 11.9 like they are here, which is probably not really 11.9.
No, but you still got to get on the move of of cracking those big beers at 4 p.m. on a Sunday, though.
I can't do it.
No, especially not when you're waking up at 1 in the afternoon.
Exactly. Well, hey, on the weekend, yeah, for sure.
That's basically breakfast for you.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine waking up and just cracking that. It's not cottage season yet. Jesus Christ. So, Colin, as far as for both businesses that we're here talking about, I guess from Labo and also Passenger, like what's next? What's new? What should people look forward to from both businesses?
Yeah, well, from the passenger side, hopefully we will have a premises in Montreal soon.
Hell yeah.
That is the goal. We'll see how things pan out, how we're received. So far, things have been fantastic. But
Amazing.
yeah, we'll just take things how it goes, and as the can say, we'll keep on traveling, we'll keep on collaborating, and hopefully things keep smooth sailing, if you will.
Love that.
For the Labo, really just keep an eye out for us on conferences coming up, the OCBC, the CBAC, the AMBQ in Quebec. And yeah, we're just going to keep spreading our wings as far across the country as possible. And as I said, we've only really started to outreach in the last year and a half. So yeah, just really keep us in mind if you do find your yeast costs are getting a bit too much right now, and seems in every aspect of ingredients, things just keep on rising and rising. Whereas, as I said, Labo being 25%, at least 25% cheaper in the liquid yeast supplying section, it's always a good option. I don't know if you guys want to pop down a link for our website and for both Passenger and Labo
I was gonna
at the bottom
say
of this video.
yeah, for sure. Like let everybody know where they can find both Labo and Passenger online, man.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, and reach out to me, C Byrne at Lever Labo, if you want to place an order or just get some more information on how we can help you guys. As I said, we're lean, we're mean, we're able to get our yeast from our door to yours in 48 hours at, as I said, the one of the best prices in the North American market. So yeah,
And
that's all
the
I.
so they could reach out to you directly, and the website is it Lever like LEVURELELABO.com?
I just literally type in Le Labo yeast, LELABO yeast, and
In
it'll send
Google.
you straight to the website. Yeah.
Beautiful. That's perfect. And for Passenger, what's the vibes? What's the social? What's the website?
Passenger, just again, Google Passenger Brewing Company or Brasserie Passenger Brewing Company. And yeah, it'll send you straight to our website. And again, as I said, hopefully you guys are willing to post those pages down below as well. So
Yeah, man.
Passenger Brewing Co. on Instagram.
Passenger
yeah,
Brewing
exactly.
Co. Perfect. I think you've frozen there, Nate.
Yeah. My camera battery has died, and it's going to take me too long to change it by the time we wrap up. So I'm just
Gotcha.
going to leave it.
Live it there. All right, beauty. Colin, stick around. We're gonna wrap this up, and then we'll say goodbye off air. But bro, thank you so much for hanging out tonight. Thank you for this great conversation and for this, like, hopefully everyone took a lot away from this as far as like just the impact that yeast has on beer and what it can do. And I know I learned a lot. So this has been awesome, bro.
Absolutely.
Thank you for taking the time and for hanging out and get to try these fantastic beers. So appreciate you, bro. Folks, make sure you check out Labo and Passenger. everywhere there. And thank you so much for watching and listening. If you enjoyed the episode, smash the thumbs up, hit subscribe below, hit that notification bell, Nathaniel.
Ding.
So you know when the new drops. Follow us everywhere at BAOS Podcast on social, everywhere online. Check out the podcast on Spotify and Apple Music and everywhere. Apple Podcasts and everywhere you get pods. Of course, the video is now on Spotify, which is amazing. And fuck, I don't even know. We'll see you in the next one, guys. Cheers. Get in you.
Cheers, y'all.
Thanks, guys.